On the school rooftop, second-year high school student Haruchika Isezaki kneels, extending a hand towards his classmate, Kiriyama-san. With determination, he confesses his feelings, asking her to go out with him. He reflects that all his hard work has led to this single moment. His heart pounds as his hand gets closer, but suddenly his world shifts. Confused, he looks up, questioning what is happening as Kiriyama-san seems to distort before him. In a great rush of wind and light, his surroundings dissolve into a blinding white void. The disorienting blur continues, revealing a vast, empty expanse with a lone figure tumbling through it. The rushing sensation ceases as Haruchika finds himself in a field of flowers, completely bewildered by the sudden change of scenery. He stumbles to his feet, calling out for Kiriyama-san and wondering where he is. He was just on the rooftop. As he questions what is happening, a small, winged being appears before him, cheerfully welcoming the Love Master. Following the small creature's appearance, a tall, ethereal woman materializes in a glow of light. Haruchika shudders, demanding to know who she is. With a serene smile, she confirms his identity, Haruchika Isezaki. She introduces herself as the goddess Clementine and states that she has a favor to ask, adding that refusal is not an option. Stunned, Haruchika demands to know if they were the ones who brought him to this place. Clementine calmly confirms that they were. His composure breaks. Haruchika yells in fury, reminding them he was in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime confession and demanding to be sent back. Clementine reassures him, promising to return him as long as he listens to her request, while her small companion nervously pleads for him to calm down. Skeptical, Haruchika questions if she is being truthful. With a sigh, Clementine looks at him earnestly and makes her plea, "Please save the world." The enormous request leaves him speechless, and he can only ask what, exactly, she wants him to do. He reeled from the request, but Clementine quickly clarified that she wasn't asking him to defeat the Demon King. With a cheerful confirmation from Jibril, the goddess explained that the Demon King had already been vanquished just last week. The news left Haruchika stunned. His shock gave way to confusion, prompting him to ask if the Demon King would simply revive. Clementine confirmed his suspicion, stating that the revival was expected in 30 years. As Jibril sheepishly apologized for the confusing delivery, mentioning it was a matter of fate, Clementine sighed. She affirmed that the next generation of heroes was already scheduled to defeat him then. Haruchika remained skeptical of her casual tone. The goddess elaborated, explaining that this time, the Demon King had used his final moments to cast a terrible curse, a dark power swirling with malevolent energy. While Jibril seemed to understand the sentiment, Clementine dismissed it as a petty act of spite, remarking that the Demon King had been revived and defeated hundreds of times before. Sensing the conversation was finally reaching its point, Haruchika asked what any of this had to do with him. With a grave expression, she revealed the nature of the curse. The Demon King had stolen the very ability to fall in love from the 7 young women who were fated to become the mothers of the next hero party, the ones scheduled to face him in 30 years. The implication sent Jibril into a panic. She grabbed the goddess, frantically pointing out that without love and marriage, the next generation of heroes would never be born. Haruchika could only stare, dumbfounded, trying to process the idea of the ability to fall in love being stolen. Regaining her composure, Clementine turned her full attention to him. She declared that to restore the girl's ability to love, she had summoned him, Haruchika Isezaki. With a dramatic flourish, she bestowed upon him the titles of the ultimate sage of romance and the Love Master. The grandiose titles sent a jolt of mortification through him. He recoiled, shouting his disbelief and questioning the embarrassing moniker. He realized with horror that he had been dragged into the worst possible kind of trouble. His outburst caused Clementine to turn to Jibril with doubt. She questioned if they had made a mistake, ranting that he had no Love Master aura and seemed completely unreliable. Jibril could only remind the goddess that she herself had been certain he was the right choice. His fury boiling over, he turned on the deity who brought him here, calling her a useless goddess. As Clementine reeled in shock, demanding to know what he had just called her, he ignored her completely. With a grim expression, he tightened his tie, a dark resolve settling over him. A menacing aura began to sizzle around him as he embraced a new, defiant mindset. He would complete this mission, but he would do it entirely on his own terms. Haruchika Isezaki looks at the goddess Clementine with a confident smirk. He acknowledges that while he has mastered all sorts of knowledge about romance, she seems like she would be difficult to win over. However, he adds, beautiful women are much easier to charm. After all, Clementine's eyebrow twitches in annoyance as she asks what he means by that. Jibril, watching from the side, thinks to herself that such things shouldn't be said out loud, but then seems to encourage the goddess, as if daring her to prove him wrong. Flustered, Clementine snaps at Jibril not to drag her into this. In a sudden move, Haruchika closes the distance, grabbing Clementine's arm and pulling her forcefully toward him. She cries out in shock as he stares intently into her eyes, his face now uncomfortably close to hers. As he continues to hold her, a blush spreads across Clementine's face. She pleads with him not to stare at her like that, shyly insisting that she isn't a beauty. With a deadpan expression, Haruchika simply replies, yeah, He then leans in even closer, his lips near her ear. He clarifies his earlier statement. Beautiful women are easy to charm, but she is simply too beautiful. Clementine's heart thumps in her chest, and she can only manage a weak protest that his words aren't true. His hand tightens its grip on her shoulder, holding her in place. Maintaining his intense gaze, he presses his advantage. Will you still not accept me? He asks. Clementine, completely flustered, can only stammer in response. Overwhelmed by his proximity and words, the goddess staggers backward, her composure utterly broken. Haruchika watches her, his stare unwavering. Haruchika steps back with a satisfied smirk, thinking to himself that perhaps he went a little too far. Clementine slumps to the ground dazed. Jibril rushes forward, utterly amazed, and demands to know what the love master just did to the goddess. She asks if it was some kind of trick. Haruchika casually confirms her suspicion, dismissing it as nothing much. He explains that he just played a little trick on her mind. He begins his explanation to Jibril by referencing the concept of human space, or personal space. He details how humans maintain appropriate distances based on their relationships, noting that if a stranger invaded one's intimate zone like a lover would, the reaction would be one of revulsion, a crime, even. Jibril is taken aback by this framing. Continuing his breakdown, he clarifies that simply invading her space would have been crude, only making her uncomfortable. Instead, his strategy was more refined. He provoked the goddess, making her approach him of her own volition, and then used her own momentum to close the final distance and breach her personal space. As Jibril begins to grasp the concept, mentioning breathing, Haruchika confirms she is on the right track, but states that the most important part comes next. He reveals that as he closed the distance, he simultaneously locked eyes with Clementine and perfectly matched his breathing pace with hers. He explains the underlying principle to the astonished Jibril. Gazing into each other's eyes and the gradual synchronization of breathing are intimate acts shared by lovers. By intentionally recreating that specific physical state, he tricked her body into recognizing him as her lover. He concedes that this technique is difficult and required tremendous practice. The physiological effects follow. He details how, once the body is tricked, the heart rate increases and the brain releases a cocktail of chemicals, phenylethylamine, estrogen, and endorphins, that promote feelings of romance. At that point, he concludes, his words become like a lover's whispers. By speaking into her ear with a deep voice and making her feel his presence, resistance becomes nearly impossible. As Jibril marvels at the explanation, Haruchika internally scoffs at how easy the useless goddess was, admitting he was prepared to just go home if it failed. Jibril, now fully impressed, dubs him the love master. A shadow crosses Haruchika's face as he briefly wonders why he threw everything away to master this skill. Shaking it off, he pivots back to business, asking Clementine about the 7 girls she mentioned and proposing a deal. If he succeeds, she must send him back. His resolve hardens as he thinks of his true purpose. It was all to confess to her. He clenches his fist, determined to return her side. From the floor, still blushing, Clementine gives her answer, a simple promise yes. As Clementine begins to rise, Haruchika states that after being so rude, he won't let her claim she can't fulfill her end of the bargain. With a squeeze of her fist, she stands and firmly agrees, I'll do it. Haruchika offers a confident grin. Clementine dusts herself off and, clearing her throat, announces it's time to get back on track. At that exact moment, Haruchika is startled by a sudden jolt and a sharp sound, as if something has just been attached to him. He recoils as the goddess Clementine, with arms outstretched, formally declares his mission. To return home, he, love master Haruchika Isezaki, must restore the love in the hearts of 7 girls. His path is barred until every single one of them has fallen for him. With her proclamation delivered, Clementine announces she is heading back, leaving the rest to Jibril before disappearing in a column of light. Jibril sighs, muttering about her goddess's usual abruptness, then turns to Haruchika, offering a small apology and sympathizing with his difficult situation. She then grabs his tie with surprising force, enthusiastically pledging her full support to the love master. Irritated, Haruchika insists she stop using that title. After a moment's thought, Jibril suggests calling him just master instead, a compromise he grudgingly accepts. As he agrees, a glowing sigil materializes on the ground beneath his feet, startling him. He asks what he is supposed to do now, and Jibril, with a confident smile, announces she will take him to the first target's location. With a cry of let's go, she initiates their departure, engulfing them both in a flash of energy. In an instant, they reappear high above a sprawling city. Haruchika yelps in terror, flailing his arms and legs as he realizes he is suspended in midair. Jibril, floating calmly beside him, reassures him that he will not fall. As he struggles to orient himself, Jibril points towards a large, fortified structure below. She explains that their destination is the Night Academy, and that the first target is a student there. She specifies their location, Melkor, the royal capital of the Filio kingdom. She elaborates, revealing that the first target is the youngest daughter of a militant noble family. This clan of warriors, whose lands border the Demon King's domain, makes a living hunting monsters. The information startles Haruchika, who realizes this situation feels less like a simple romance and more like a high fantasy adventure. Jibril continues, unfazed by his reaction, stating that she has already handled all the arrangements. He will be enrolled in the academy as an exchange student from a neighboring country. Furthermore, she has placed him in the same class as the target, with his seat directly beside hers. His panic intensifies. He throws up a hand, shouting for her to wait, protesting that he knows absolutely nothing about this world's customs or common sense. Jibril tries to calm him, promising to be by his side the entire time to offer support. She adds a crucial detail. Only he will be able to see her. With a confident puff of her chest, she tells him to leave everything to her, but his deeply skeptical expression reveals his profound doubt about the entire plan. He finds himself being praised by Jibril, who declares that the love technique he once showed the goddess was amazing. She then questions him, wondering why he chose such a straightforward confession for the girl on a rooftop, recalling a memory of him asking someone to go out with him. As she begins to ask another question, Jibril suddenly realizes he can perceive her. She lets out a startled yelp and apologizes profusely, while Haruchika, annoyed, confronts her, demanding to know if she was watching him. In the awkward silence that follows, with Jibril now perched on his head, Haruchika quietly mutters that the girl from his memory was his first love. Deciding to end the strange situation, he grabs Jibril, apologizing as he pulls her down. From behind a large column, they peer out at a fighting arena. Jibril excitedly whispers that one of the combatants below is the target. From their vantage point, Haruchika can see the crowded stands, including a large, heavily scarred man watching the match with grim intensity. In the center of the arena, the battle rages. A young woman with short, light-toned hair unleashes a furious assault on a hulking, bald man. She stomps on his foot to break his stance, dodges a wild swing, and lands a devastating blow to his head, leaving him to realize he is utterly defeated. Jibril confirms it for him. The girl over there is the first one, Lady Marion Bonnet. Victorious, Marion props her foot on the railing and flashes a confident, almost predatory grin as Haruchika stares in stunned disbelief. In a light-hearted moment, Haruchika and Jibril ponder the attire of the goddess Clementine, who stands with her back to them. Jibril identifies her minimalist garment as a thong, much to Haruchika's analytical fascination. The topic then shifts to a flustered Marion, drenched in a simple t-shirt, prompting Haruchika to muse that the appeal of any clothing ultimately depends on the person wearing it. The scene shifts to a grand academy, where a teacher at his desk announces his intention to introduce a transfer student. As Haruchika ISEKAI'D is called to enter, the students in the classroom murmur amongst themselves, surprised by a new arrival so late in the year. One student, Marion, wonders what this newcomer will be like. He stands before his new classmates and introduces himself as Haruchika ISEKAI'D. He explains that he is transferring late due to certain circumstances, but expresses his hope that they can all get along. The other students are immediately struck by his calm demeanor and elegant manners, some even whispering that he could be royalty traveling incognito. For Haruchika, this is all part of a calculated plan. He knows the first impression is the most important. With a gentle smile and a slow, low voice, he carefully enunciates every phrase. He is confident that he has mastered the art of crafting his desired image, that of a kind, refined, and intellectual individual. As his ethereal advisors, Jibril and Clementine, cheer him on from his shoulders, his gaze sweeps across the room and lands on Marion Bonnet. Following his introduction, the teacher directs him to an empty seat. When Haruchika looks for its location, the teacher points toward Marion, asking her to raise her hand. She complies, confirming her seat is the one next to his. He takes his seat and they exchange pleasantries. Internally, Haruchika notes that he had expected her to be some kind of Amazon warrior, but finds her to be a normal, cute girl. Deciding to learn more, he prepares to use a special skill. His eyes focus, activating the appraisal skill given to him by Jibril. A panel of information only he can see appears, detailing Marion's status. She is an 18-year-old knight apprentice with dual wielding and sword rush skills. He notes with interest that her current affection value is at 0, realizing his goal is to raise it. He smirks, already plotting his next move. When class ends, he approaches her, complimenting the sword at her hip as a masterwork. Marion beams with pride, explaining that she designed it herself and commissioned the best blacksmith in her territory to create it. Haruchika is genuinely impressed, not just by the design, but by its incredible sharpness, and tells her she has great taste. His hands clasped, he looks at her thoughtfully. Based on the quality of her custom weapon, he surmises that she must be quite strong, addressing her formally as Bonnet-san. She stops him, however, insisting with a friendly wink that he should just call her Marion. She immediately reciprocates, stating she will call him Haruchika, which catches him off guard. Her friendly demeanor then shifts to a competitive smirk as she adds that she wouldn't go so far as to say she is strong, subtly challenging his assumption. He confidently explained his strategy to Jibril, certain of his success. The trick, he mused, was to get into someone's inner circle by bringing up their strong points. He had watched Marion the day before and planned to ask about what she wanted to show off, agree with her, and praise her. Jabril, impressed, hailed him as a master of love, certain the affection value would rise on its own. With a smug grin, Haruchika declared he had her. However, during lunch break, reality delivered a crushing blow. A display of Marion Bonoite's status revealed her current affection value was a stark 0. As a memory of Marion laughing at him flashed by, Haruchika stared in disbelief, his face contorted in rage and confusion as he roared, questioning why the value hadn't increased. His despair deepened. He lamented that her reaction had seemed just 1 or 2 steps away from complete victory, and yet the result was nothing. 0. He couldn't fathom how it hadn't gone up at all. Seeing his distress, Jabril gently patted his head, attempting to console him by saying it was still only the first day. He barely seemed to register her comfort, calling out to Jibri. She immediately bristled at the shortened name, shouting that he couldn't just shorten it like that, and that they would get complaints. Ignoring her outburst, Haruchika cut to the heart of the matter, asking if the affection value number was even capable of moving. Jabril leaned over his desk, assuring him that she was sure it did. She then pointed out that he was the only one in the classroom, so openly letting his true, agitated colors show. Jabril then admitted that this was the first time such a case had occurred, so she wasn't sure why the value was 0. Her uncertainty solidified Haruchika's resolve. He stood, declaring that if the premise of whether Marion was special or not remained unclear, he couldn't proceed. As he started to walk away, a startled Jabril called out to him. As he strode down the school corridor, Jabril flew after him, asking where he was going. He announced his plan to test his ability on the other girls to establish a baseline. He would start with a particular one. Jabril looked ahead and gasped, questioning his choice of such a scary-looking person. The long-haired girl in question turned, her expression severe as she demanded to know what he was looking at. The next morning, the results were undeniable. The scary girl's affection value was now 100, and she swooned at the sight of him. Across the classroom, other girls whose affection values had also reached 100 called out his name with adoration. Observing the scene, Haruchika stroked his chin. He had his answer. Marion was the sole abnormality. He now understood what it felt like to have one's ability to love stolen away. Haruchika Isezaki observes his interactions with a female classmate, noting her affection value is a high 89. He reflects internally, recalling that since the previous afternoon, he has been testing his charm on all the girls he has encountered. He muses that the affection value rises normally for all of them. With a confident exhale, he concludes that because the girls aren't jaded, they're quite easy to win over, as evidenced by the high affection scores he achieves with others. Despite the friendly atmosphere and his apparent popularity, which Marion Bonnet points out to him, Haruchika's focus is singular. He admits to himself that while everyone's friendliness is helpful, his personal goal right now is to get closer to Marion. Marion lets out a cheerful laugh at his expense, asking bluntly if people often tell him his smile looks fake. The unexpected question shatters Haruchika's composure, leaving him momentarily stunned. The contrast is stark. While others are easily swayed, Marion's affection value remains at a resolute 0. Haruchika grits his teeth in frustration, realizing his efforts don't even make her flinch. He realizes he needs a breakthrough to solve this problem. Jabril panics, noting that all his tactics have been total misses, but Haruchika puts on a confident facade, claiming he's been told similar things by friends before. His thoughts turn serious as he watches a sword practice session from the sidelines, truly wondering what is wrong with Marion. She calls out to him, warning that he'll get seriously hurt if he keeps daydreaming. He apologizes, resolving internally that he must do something. He decides to join the practice, picking up a wooden sword. Acknowledging he is not on Marion's level, he plans to imitate what he sees, noting that the other students also appear to be at ridiculously high levels of skill. Marion immediately critiques his posture, asking what is wrong with his stance before flatly declaring him a complete amateur. Haruchika's attempt to protest is cut short as she reaffirms her judgment, with Jabril quietly agreeing. In a flash, Marion closes the distance between them, locking his arm and disarming him with a speed he cannot follow. Stunned, Haruchika realizes he didn't see her move at all, despite having undergone physical conditioning to improve his reflexes for the sake of popularity. He lay on the ground, disarmed and defeated, groaning in pain. Marion stood over him, practice sword resting on her shoulder. She remarked that a complete amateur could never pass the night school transfer exam, then asked what his reasons were for trying. Haruchika could only stare up in shock. Nearby, another confrontation was taking place. A blonde-haired student stood panting amidst several others he had just struck down. His victory was short-lived, as a new challenger approached, a large, imposing figure. Haruchika recognized him immediately as Dean McAllister, rumored to be the strongest in the night class. He realized that a 5-on-1 fight must have been the only way the others thought they stood a chance against him. McAllister moved with shocking speed for his size, striking the blonde student down with a single, powerful blow. The boy cried out in pain as he was disarmed. McAllister looked down on him with contempt, declaring him an embarrassment to the Royal Knight Academy for being at such a low level. Watching from a distance, Haruchika was stunned by the display of power. He corrected himself internally. Strong didn't even begin to cover it. As McAllister stood over his defeated opponent, Marion watched him with a stern expression. McAllister then turned to Marion, demanding to know why she hadn't made up her mind. He stated he was willing to marry a girl as unrefined as her, and that she should be thanking him. Marion retorted sharply that she never asked for that, and if he preferred a more feminine girl, he should find someone else. Confused by the exchange, Haruchika asked Marion what was going on with the man who was claiming her as his wife. McAllister glared at them from a distance as Marion prepared to answer. She calmly explained that the man was her fiancé, a matter that had already been decided. Haruchika and Jabril reacted with utter shock, crying out in disbelief. Marion simply sighed, her expression unreadable. She continued, explaining that it seems their families arranged the engagement without her knowledge. A memory of a formal family dinner, with McAllister present, surfaced. She clarified that the Bonoite family values strength above all else, and because McAllister is strong, the arrangement was made. Marion confessed that she has been refusing to fight him, merely postponing the inevitable. She doesn't want to get married. She wants to become a knight. However, she declared that all that's left is for them to fight. If McAllister proves he is truly stronger than her, then the deal will be sealed. Haruchika listened intently, a new thought forming as Jabril wondered aloud if it was truly impossible for even Marion to win. He hears a strange sound as Marion confronts him, incensed. She demands to know if he thinks she's incapable of judging her own chances of victory, even if he is just an amateur. As she speaks, he sees a notification. Her current affection value has dropped to -2. He realizes with a smirk that the value can indeed go in the negative direction. Fuming, Marion turns and stomps away. The scene shifts to the following morning. As she arrives for what appears to be morning training, Haruchika greets her with a cheerful, "Good morning, Marion." She stops in her tracks, turning to face him with a cold expression. His friendly greeting is met with a silent, questioning stare, leaving both him and a nearby Jabril completely bewildered by her reaction. Jabril panics, exclaiming that his favorability has dropped like a stone into the negatives. Haruchika quiets her, his mind on Marion's previous declaration that she hadn't lost her fight. He wonders what to do, considering she doesn't want to get married and sees forfeiting as a defeat. He then turns to Marion with a disturbingly cheerful expression, asking what's wrong with an arranged marriage. He suggests that if she hates being called a loser, she should just fight, lose, and get it over with. He even proposes that settling down with a husband and kids might be nice. Then, to her utter shock, he declares his own ambition, to become a knight. His callous words provoke a violent reaction. Marion grabs him by the collar, shouting at him not to make her laugh. She screams that the idea of getting married and having a child is so repulsive, she would rather die on the spot. Her use of the word repulsive strikes a chord with Haruchika, who recoils as if physically struck. Other students nearby murmur amongst themselves, agreeing that anyone would react that way if told to marry and have a child without any romantic feelings. A new notification appears. Marion's affection value has plummeted to -50. Jabril is beside herself, crying out that Marion hates him now. She points out that it dropped another 10 points from the day before and that Marion likely spent the entire night stewing in anger. Despite the catastrophic drop, Haruchika simply smiles. He reassures Jabril that it's fine, that there's no problem at all. He claims, heading towards his goal. After all, as he thinks to himself, falling in love happens in an instant. A profile of Marion Bonoite, an 18-year-old knight apprentice, is displayed. Her skills include dual wielding and sword rush. A system indicator reveals her current affection value toward an unseen target is an extremely low -99. She sits with a slight pout, a piece of food still in her mouth. Seated at a table, she glares at Haruchika Isezaki and demands that he stop looking at her. He calmly retorts that he wasn't, suggesting she's being rather full of herself. As Jabril watches from his shoulder, Marion's internal thoughts seethe with a curse. "Die, you piece of trash." Jabril, alarmed, asks Haruchika what he plans to do, noting that Marion's feelings have escalated beyond simple hatred. Haruchika, however, remains composed, observing that the affection value seems to have hit its limit at -99. He confidently states that the setup is complete and all he needs now is the trigger. Just as he mentions his completed setup, the formidable Dean McAllister storms into view. His face is a mask of pure rage as he glares forward, shouting, "You bastard." He slams a letter onto the table directly in front of Marion. She stares at it, shocked, identifying it as a challenge letter and questioning its meaning. Haruchika looks on from the side, feigning confusion. Dean immediately confronts Haruchika, demanding to know why he is interfering. Marion quickly tells Haruchika that it has nothing to do with him, finding his presence creepy. Unfazed, Haruchika addresses Dean, revealing that he knows Marion's family wants to marry her to the strongest man available. With a smirk, he concludes that he figured that man shouldn't be Dean. His words provoke a sneer from Dean, who asks if Haruchika has fallen for Marion. Before he can reply, Marion snaps at Dean, declaring she's not his property and that he should take his weird tastes elsewhere, dismissing him as a mountain monkey she doesn't care about. Haruchika calmly adds that he never asked Dean to overlook anything. This statement fuels Dean's fury. He growls at the very notion that Haruchika believes himself to be stronger is an insult he cannot possibly ignore. As if on cue, Marion's affection value drops again, hitting -100. She stares at Haruchika in disbelief, asking what kind of harassment this is. Seizing the opportunity, Dean points at Haruchika and issues a formal challenge. A duel in 7 days, at a time and place of Haruchika's choosing to put him in his place. Haruchika then explains his logic to the stunned Marion. Since she doesn't want to marry Dean, he will act as her proxy and duel him. If he wins, she won't have to go through with the marriage. Marion is utterly flabbergasted by this reasoning, shouting that there is no way he can possibly win. She grabs Haruchika by the collar, furious, declaring that there's a time and place for such things. As other students watch the confrontation, he remains unfazed, suggesting that even if he loses the duel, she can simply make an excuse that she herself did not lose. He leans in closer, a confident smirk on his face, and makes a startling proposal to a shocked Marion. She must train him for 7 days so that he can win. Haruchika presses his point, asking if she would rather kill him right there on the spot. Enraged, Marion calls him the worst and warns that if he loses, he will be killed, and she will be the one to do it. With only 1 week left, Haruchika feigns distress, pleading for her to take it easy on him. 2 days later, the training is underway. Marion, whose affection value for Haruchika is a stark -100, stands over his collapsed form. She demands he get up, calling him a blowhard and questioning why he is resting when he is supposed to win. Lying on the ground, Haruchika reflects that this merciless treatment is exactly what he expected from someone who hates him to the core. As Jabril watches with concern, he tells her to stop reading his mind, remarking that his middle school years of being hated were not for nothing. Marion continues the relentless training, instructing him to increase the initial speed of his thrust, as McAllister's only potential vulnerability is being caught off guard by the first strike. Haruchika acknowledges the strategy, privately reaffirming his resolve to do whatever it takes to return to his world. Jabril, meanwhile, finds no cheat items for an easy victory and urges him to resume swinging. And so, the promised week passed in a grueling montage of training. Day after day, Marion pushed Haruchika to his absolute limit, preparing him for the impending duel. After the intense week concludes, Marion returns to the Bonoite family estate and prepares for a bath. Soaking in the tub, she sighs, thinking that if Haruchika loses, she won't be able to make excuses to her father and will have to kill the boy herself. At that moment, her father's voice cuts through, informing her that he heard about the duel, and, since it is a proxy duel she is committed to, he will attend as well. Marion looks toward the door as her father remarks that, surprisingly, Haruchika has some guts. She reflects on the brutal training schedule they just endured, acknowledging that they somehow managed to finish it. Now, all that is left is to see what happens. On the day of the match, she and her companions find themselves in a massive coliseum packed with an eager crowd. Spectators buzz with excitement, shouting encouragement and noting that it has been a while since Dean McAllister's last fight. Elsewhere, Dean McAllister smirks condescendingly. He tells an unseen person that he is willing to accompany them in this pathetic farce, adding that they should be grateful for his presence. In response to his arrogance, Marion offers a curt, "My thanks." Beside her, Haruchika remains silent, his expression composed. From a stance, Lord Bonoite explains that the arena is enchanted with magic that reduces lethal attacks to a non-lethal level. At the same time, Haruchika glances at Marion's status, noting her affection value is at -100. He has a sharp realization. He doesn't need to win, but if he doesn't act like he's trying to win, he will fail his true objective. His thoughts are interrupted by the announcer, who confirms the rules for the combatants. The match, he declares, will end as soon as one of them lands a single lethal blow. He asks if they understand, as Haruchika and McAllister face each other in the center of the arena. With a cry of match start, the duel begins. Haruchika takes a steadying breath before smirking McAllister. In that same instant, Marion explodes into action, lunging forward in a blur that stuns her father in the stands. As she moves, Haruchika grips his own blade, knowing this first move is crucial. In the dueling arena, Haruchika lunges forward, thrusting his practice sword directly at Dean McAllister. The larger student sidesteps the blow, a grimace of annoyance on his face as he realizes he missed his initial assessment. From the sidelines, Marion watches with a tense expression. Dean's annoyance quickly curdles into fury. He glares down at Haruchika, who looks up in surprise as the crowd gasps. "You little pest!" Dean roars, his voice echoing in the arena. The retaliation is immediate and brutal. Haruchika is thrown backward, landing hard on the ground as his sword clatters away. Blood drips from the corner of his mouth as he stares up in pain at Dean, who begins to walk away. He pauses, a dark, cruel smile twisting his features. He announces that he had intended to finish the fight in a single blow, but has now changed his mind. He vows that he will not let it end easily. In response to Dean's furious shout, Haruchika pushes himself onto one knee. A defiant smirk appears on his face, despite the blood. He thinks to himself that this is everything he could have hoped for, steeling himself to remain conscious and fight back with a smirk. He narrowly dodges another powerful swing from Dean. As he moves, he analyzes his own strategy. He wasn't being sarcastic. He knew that first blow wasn't lethal. It was meant to provoke Dean. He understands that his opponent can kill him in one hit, and his only path forward was to avoid that fatal strike. Panting heavily, his face streaked with blood, Haruchika's resolve remains unbroken. He reaffirms his purpose internally. Winning this fight doesn't matter. The true goal is to make Marion regain her love. His focus is shattered as Dean lands another punishing blow, sending Haruchika crying out in pain and stumbling to his knees. The crowd jeers, calling him pathetic and telling him to give up. From the sidelines, Jabril cries out for a master, and Marion watches with wide, horrified eyes. Looming over the fallen student, Dean mocks him. "You've got weird taste," he sneers. "Caring for a mountain monkey like her, you're becoming a pile of trash." Marion hears the insult, her concerned expression deepening as she realizes the crowd is right. There seems to be no way for Haruchika to win. As Dean winds up for another attack, Haruchika grits his teeth. He internally refutes the idea that it's over, telling himself it's not like that. He has to admit, however, that his opponent is simply too fast for his build. He endured the blows, recognizing that Dean McAllister was merely toying with him. From the stands, Marion Bonnet watched, her brow furrowed as she quietly questioned why Haruchika was being so desperate. But this was all part of his plan. He knew that seeing someone resist so desperately in an overwhelmingly disadvantageous situation often compels others to cheer for them. This psychological phenomenon, the underdog effect, was what he counted on. He knew Marion would be no exception. As the crowd murmured, wondering how he was still standing, Marion's resolve began to crack, and she whispered his name. Her mind raced with conflict. She had told him to just lose and get married, so why was he going this far? The sight of his struggle stirred something within her. The internal battle ended. The moment she began to cheer, the girl who claimed to hate him let out a powerful, desperate cry from the stands, screaming his name. Hearing her, Haruchika let out a defiant roar. As a result, a contradiction occurred between her feelings and her actions. To resolve it, her affection value flipped instantly. Jabril watched in astonishment as Marion, now fully committed, screamed for Haruchika to win. Her affection value surged to 100. The sudden, passionate cheering caused Dean McAllister to turn his head in surprise. Seeing his opponent's attention diverted to Marion, Haruchika seized the opening, declaring, "You're mine." With a final shout, he lunged, slamming his fist into the side of the distracted Dean's head. The blow landed with brutal force. Dean collapsed. The arena fell silent before the announcer declared Haruchika Isezaki the winner. The crowd erupted in disbelief. The long shot had won. Even Haruchika himself could only pant and laugh, shocked that he had actually won the duel. He looked at his fallen opponent, whose consciousness had been entirely taken by that one blow. Then, a realization struck him. He gasped, understanding that there had been no need to actually win. He had already achieved his true goal, regaining Marion's affection, the moment she had called his name. His victory is met with fury. Dean McAllister glares, enraged at being defeated by such a dishonest trick. On the arena floor, Marion lies dazed while Jabril and Clementine stare in disbelief at the system display. Jabril wonders what happened, while Clementine observes the affection value, which has inexplicably jumped from a negative number to 100. Jabril turns to Clementine, demanding to know what Haruchika did to Marion. The goddess calmly identifies it as an application of the Benjamin Franklin effect. She explains the psychological principle. Humans instinctively strive to keep their emotions and actions consistent. Because Marion committed the contradictory act of cheering for a man she hated, she experienced cognitive dissonance. To resolve this conflict, her emotions forcibly changed to match her actions, resulting in the belief that she now likes him. From the ground, a winded Haruchika confirms this was his gamble. He knew her affection wouldn't rise normally, so he reasoned that by lowering it to an extreme, the resulting contradiction from her cheering would cause her perception to bounce back with even greater force, altering her mind completely. As Jabril marvels at her master's brilliance, Marion rises to her feet. With tears welling in her eyes, she calls out his name, her voice trembling. She approaches him, her face flushed, and offers a sincere thank you. Haruchika, taken aback, insists he doesn't deserve it, but she simply smiles and says it's nothing. Then, before he can process what is happening, Marion leans down, cups his face, and presses her lips against his. Haruchika's eyes fly open in utter shock. The sudden kiss silences the entire arena. The crowd of students, who have been watching the aftermath of the duel, stares with jaws agape, completely stunned by the public display. Marion pulls away, blushing deeply as she touches her lips. She shyly confesses that he was her first. The revelation hits Haruchika like a physical blow. He realizes with dawning horror that it was his first kiss as well. Regaining her composure, Marion looks at him with a soft but determined gaze and declares that she is his first partner. Still reeling, Haruchika can only ask if she's happy about it, as Dean McAllister watches from the sidelines with a thunderous expression. Her face flushed with a deep blush, she pulls back slightly, eyes squeezed shut in pure bliss. She declares that her first kiss was with her husband, and that it was the best feeling imaginable. When asked if she regrets it, she emphatically denies it. Her hands still frame his face as she tells him it's too late to take it back now. The word husband echoes in Haruchika's mind, leaving him utterly bewildered and sweating profusely. He is still reeling when Marion, her expression a mix of blush and resolve, declares that since she has fallen for him so deeply, he must take responsibility. From a distance, Jabril panics, realizing they've skipped love and are now talking about marriage. Marion continues, stating that Haruchika must become stronger than her to convince the Ren'ai family. The weight of this pronouncement crashes down on Haruchika, his mind spiraling in terror as he realizes the dire situation he's in and questions if he has gone too far. Jabril reports that Haruchika safely secured victory in the previous day's duel. She adds, however, that Marion's affection level has also reached its maximum. As if on cue, Marion, blushing slightly, calls out Haruchika's name. He looks over at her, confused, and asks her name in return. In response to his question, Marion abruptly sits down on his lap. Visibly flustered and sweating, Haruchika demands to know what she is doing. She leans in close, her face just inches from his. When he asks again what she is doing, she playfully suggests that she might be flirting. With a smirk, she compliments his perfectly structured features, prompting him to ask if she is even listening. He sighs, thinking that he should probably be more worried about the people around them. In the classroom, other students stare and mutter amongst themselves about the newcomer who is suddenly so close with Marion. His worry is precisely what led to this situation. Still seated firmly on his lap, Marion tells him that he doesn't understand. She turns to him with a serious expression, pointing out that he actually managed to defeat McAllister. Haruchika can only stare back, completely bewildered, and ask for clarification. Ignoring his confusion, she points a finger directly at his face, declaring that all eyes are on him now. Haruchika tells her to stop exaggerating, as Jabril watches from the side with a shocked expression. Marion insists it is not an exaggeration at all. She explains that by winning, he has jumped to the very top of the noble lady's list of prospective husband candidates. The revelation makes Haruchika recoil, yelling that she's too close and needs some self-awareness. Leaning against his shoulder with a smug smile, she explains that this is precisely why she must properly show everyone that he is hers. Otherwise, she warns, bad pests will start swarming around him. He was taken aback by Marion's sudden shift in demeanor. Leaning in close, she declared that, in reality, he wasn't even that great a guy. Stunned, Haruchika could only manage to utter, what bold words. Her blunt critique continued as other students looked on. She asserted that while she knew nothing of his background, his personality was terrible, he was weak, and he was arrogant. Jabril clung to him, seemingly unnerved by the confrontation. He reeled from the verbal assault, wondering why all her other assessments were so harsh when she was so fixated on the love aspect. As if to answer, Marion clasped her hands to her chest, blushing as she declared that his love for her was simply extraordinary. Exasperated, Haruchika confirmed her point, shouting back, "Am I wrong?" Her blissful expression remained as she explained her reasoning. The Ren'ai family was unusual, and her father had apparently taken a liking to McAllister. Therefore, to gain his acceptance of Haruchika, they would need to trick him. She leaned in, suggesting they create a fait accompli, a situation that cannot be changed. When Haruchika asked if it was a trick, she bluntly clarified her meaning: procreation. He recoiled in shock, yelling at her to stop jumping straight to prosperity on the first move, comparing the rapid escalation to growing bean sprouts. Amused, Marion called him a pervert for his choice of words, though she privately admitted to feeling giddy. The whole situation felt like a dream. Seeing her strange demeanor, Haruchika asked if her personality had suddenly changed. Their intense exchange was suddenly interrupted by their teacher, who commented on how harmonious they looked before reminding them that class was about to start. Both Haruchika and Marion offered sheepish apologies. Later, after their classes had concluded, they walked together out of the academy. Marion suggested that since they were already out, they should stop somewhere. In the distance, a massive coliseum-like structure stood against the sky. The suggestion caught him off guard. A thought suddenly surfaced in his mind, the idea of going on a date. He glanced at Marion, who looked back at him with a curious, questioning expression. Marion's questioning look instantly transformed into one of pure ecstasy. She joyfully exclaimed that this was an after-school date, her very first one. Overcome with happiness, she admitted she never thought such a thing would be relevant to her. When a surprised Haruchika asked if it was really her first, she eagerly confirmed and said she would go put her sword away. Without waiting for another word, she dashed ahead through the bustling streets of the royal capital, Merkle City. Laughing with delight, she called back to Haruchika, urging him to hurry up and join her. She enthusiastically points to a food stall, declaring to Haruchika that she wants to try the hanging sausages. Watching her uninhibited excitement, he reflects internally on how she's finally acting her age. He finds her behavior quite cute. He agrees, and soon they're both enjoying skewered street food. Marion savors her treat with blissful abandon, eyes closed in delight. while Haruchika watches her, slightly startled by her unrestrained enjoyment. Their date continues through the market. When Haruchika points out a smudge of food on her cheek, Marion flushes with embarrassment. Later, he tries on a choker from a vendor's stall, striking a brief, cheerful pose that amuses Marion, though his own expression quickly sours with self-consciousness. While standing on a bridge overlooking the sprawling city, their time together is abruptly interrupted. Jibril appears before them, tears streaming down her face as she points an accusing finger directly at Haruchika, who looks on with irritation. Standing together on a high balcony overlooking the town, Haruchika, Isezaki, and Marion Bonnet take in the scenery. He remarks on the incredible view, and she agrees, her voice soft as she calls it beautiful. She turns to him, her face flushed with a bright, happy smile, and confesses that she had a lot of fun today. He smiles back, telling her he's glad to hear it. Then he opens his clenched fist, revealing a small, intricate object resting in his palm. Marion looks down at it, her expression shifting to one of confusion. Her eyes widen in recognition. It's the necklace she was admiring just a moment ago. Haruchika explains that she looked like she wanted it. Before she can protest, he swiftly moves behind her, ignoring her startled cry. He insists on putting it on her himself, reasoning that they're already close enough. He fumbles with the clasp, concentrating on the task as Marion leans into him. A small giggle escapes her as she watches him struggle, asking if he's figured out yet. Still close, she chuckles softly and teases him, noting that he's really quite clumsy. Haruchika simply looks at her, his focus momentarily broken. With the necklace finally secured, Marion's face beams with pure happiness. She thanked him sincerely. Overwhelmed by the proximity and her earnest joy, Haruchika snaps that he isn't used to this sort of thing. She turns back to the view, a gentle smile on her lips. She muses aloud that she never knew liking someone could feel like such a warm and pleasant sentiment. Haruchika watches her, his expression unreadable. Later that evening, they stand outside a large building. Marion thanks him for the day and bids him farewell until tomorrow. As she walks away, Jibril appears beside Haruchika, congratulating her master on a job well done. He quietly affirms her assessment. The cherubic being explains the strategy. With this experience, even if Marion forgets her master, she should now be able to remember the happy feelings of today every time she falls in love. She considers the situation, her expression thoughtful as she looks at Haruchika. He responds with a simple, "I see." She continues, explaining that if her master wishes, they have the option of not erasing the target's memories. After capturing the remaining targets and returning, she clarifies they could choose that path. He remains silent, his eyes narrowed as he processes this unexpected alternative. His mind drifts to a memory, the final exam results. His name, Haruchika Isezaki, was at the top, just above Sakura Kiriyama. While other students called the nerdy glasses guy creepy, one girl defended him, stating she found it amazing how he faced challenges without running away. For the younger Haruchika, this was the moment he became determined to change. And so, after the next admission ceremony, he walked the school grounds as a completely transformed person. He recalls the grueling process, changing himself through blood, sweat, and tears. His new, handsome appearance immediately drew the attention of his peers. This led to immense popularity. He was constantly surrounded by admiring girls and even began teaching others his methods for seduction. Despite becoming extremely popular, however, he realized none of it mattered. His entire transformation was for one single girl. He had worked so hard, finally reaching this point, all for his destined one, Sakura Kiriyama. He stood before her and confessed his feelings directly. "I love you. Please go out with me." The memory fades, returning him to the present. Contemplating Jibril's offer, he thinks to himself, that doesn't sound so bad. But my home isn't here. He stood on the balcony overlooking the school grounds, Jibril floating beside him. She looked up at him with concern, asking if he was truly sure about this. He gave a simple, firm confirmation, yeah. His gaze was fixed on the arena below, where Marion was in the middle of a sparring match. She faced not one, but 3 opponents, Dean McAllister and 2 other male students, all wielding practice swords. The clash of blades echoed as Marion moved with fluid grace. She parried a furious downward slash from McAllister, who yelled out in frustration as his attack was effortlessly deflected. In a swift sequence of movements, she disarmed and defeated all 3. As the proctor declared the match over, Marion wiped a bead of sweat from her brow. Watching from the stands, her father, Lord Bonelite, remarked on her impressive strength, noting she was as formidable as ever. After the match, a frustrated McAllister was questioned by his companion. The student wondered why Marion had broken off their engagement, especially since both of their families had already secured the arrangement. McAllister could only reply that he didn't know. Meanwhile, 2 other female students observed Marion from afar, one commenting that her entire vibe seemed to have softened somehow. From their high perch, Haruchika and Jibril continued to watch over the now solitary figure in the arena. With a faint, knowing smile, Haruchika whispered into the wind, "Goodbye, Marion." Down below, Marion suddenly stopped, her head tilting as if she had caught the distant sound. She touched a small, new charm hanging from her ear, a look of confusion on her face. Huh, she murmured to herself, wondering if she had just heard something. With that chapter closed, Jabril righted herself in the air, her expression turning businesslike. Now then, she announced, ready for their next assignment. She asked Haruchika for the location of the next girl. He confirmed he had it, consulting his notes. Their next destination was the port town of Kurdoburg, this country's third largest city. Their target, a beastman receptionist at the Adventurers Guild. In the port town of Kurdoburg, a young beastman woman lets out a quiet sigh. Her name is Lily Fafner. Walking through the streets of port town Kurdoburg, Jabril informs Haruchika of their next objective, a beastman receptionist at the Adventurers Guild named Lily-san. Imagining a fierce, wolf-like creature, Haruchika immediately asks about the societal treatment of beastmen. He wonders aloud if they're a rare sight. Jabril confirms this, explaining that for a southern port city like Kurdoburg, her presence is indeed unusual. She clarifies that beastmen are originally from the northern mountain regions and that racial discrimination exists, much like in Haruchika's own world. She continues, adding that the guildmaster in Kurdoburg specifically noticed Lily's excellence and had her brought over from the capital. Haruchika thoughtfully considers this, murmuring about her supposed excellence. He speculates that if she turns out to be a haughty and arrogant type, it might actually make his task easier. Jabril frantically denies this possibility, waving her hands and insisting that Lily is not that type of person at all. She adds that, at present, Lily isn't even assigned to represent any adventurers. The reason, Jabril explains with a grim finality, is that she's avoided by everyone and has earned the ominous nickname, Miss Death. Haruchika expresses his confusion, recalling that Jabril had just called her excellent. Jabril clarifies the tragic irony. It seems every single adventurer assigned to her has died, one after another. Haruchika's response is chillingly pragmatic. He suggests that if she's oppressed and weakened, she'll be easy to take advantage of. Jabril is appalled, but he dismisses the situation as merely ridiculous, wondering if it's just bad luck. Having arrived before a large, timber-framed building, Haruchika confidently declares, "All right then, capture start," and prepares to enter the Adventurers Guild. He steps inside the bustling hall, taking in the scene of adventurers drinking and conversing. Approaching the counter, he finds the beastman receptionist, Lily Fafner. She looks up with weary eyes, assuming he's a new face. Before she can finish her thought, Haruchika asks if this is the place for adventure registration. She confirms and asks him to follow, but he cuts her off, telling her to wait a second. He considered the implications. If he were to register as an adventurer, he wondered, would that mean Lily Fafner would become his designated representative? Before he could proceed, another receptionist, a confident woman named Kayla, interjected. With an air of disbelief, she asked if he was certain, questioning if he would truly prefer the girl over there instead of her. Kayla's pointed question caused Lily to let out a shocked gasp, her eyes wide with surprise. The popular receptionist, meanwhile, simply looked on, confused by the entire situation. Haruchika ignored Kayla, turning his gaze directly to Lily. He stated plainly that since he would have to look at his representative's face almost every day, he would naturally prefer a girl who was his type. Lily was left stunned and speechless. His declaration sent Kayla into a fury. She stomped towards him, shouting that he couldn't just throw selfish demands at her, and angrily asked if she wasn't to his preference. With a slight dismissive smile, Haruchika confirmed that she was not. His response drew the attention of other adventurers. One approached, remarking on Haruchika's nerve for turning down the most popular girl, Kayla. He advised against choosing Lily, warning that she had a certain reputation. When Haruchika asked about this reputation, the adventurer explained. Lily, he said, was known as Miss Death. She was the owner of Jinx. Every single rookie she represented ended up dead, without exception. The weight of the adventurer's words caused Lily's expression to fall, her gaze dropping to the floor in sorrow. After a moment's thought, Haruchika looked back at the man and declared that if he were to break that jinx, then all this talk would be over. The adventurer grew angry, accusing Haruchika of butting into other people's business and insisting they were only trying to be kind by warning him. Unfazed, Haruchika turned his back on the commotion and walked toward Lily's desk. He stopped before the flustered and stammering receptionist. Pointing directly at her with unwavering resolve, Haruchika made his choice clear. It has to be you. He looks at Lily with determination and repeats his declaration. He wants her. He tells her not to worry, stating with absolute certainty that he will not die. Lily, her face a mask of anguish, cries out that everyone says that they'll be fine, that they won't die before they perish. In response to her fear, he presents a strange proposition. He suggests they make a pact. If he dies, then at that moment, she can feel true despair. He reasons that it can't be helped, as his death would mean everyone's death. Lily is left speechless and wide-eyed by his bizarre logic, while Jabril looks on in confusion. He flashes a confident, almost cocky smile, asking if it isn't thrilling, boasting that she won't be able to take her eyes off him. Lily, still reeling, can only mutter about his arrogance. With a resigned and weary expression, she warns him not to blame her for whatever happens next. With the matter settled, Lily returns to her duties behind the counter, her composure partially restored. She informs him that the first step is to fill out the registration forms. He agrees readily, as other adventurers in the guild hall stare in disbelief at the unfolding scene. Moments later, having completed the registration, Haruchika and Jibril walk through the town square. Jibril cheers, declaring that their initial contact was a success. Haruchika quietly concurs. She then notices his pensive expression and asks if something is bothering him. He dismisses her concern, claiming nothing is wrong, but his gaze remains distant. In truth, his mind was replaying the moment they left the guild. He had used his appraisal skill on Lily, and the results were surprising. A system-like interface revealed her details, including a current affection value of 32. Her affection for him had risen. This increase was significant. He recalls to Jibril how all the techniques he consciously used to raise Marion's fondness had failed, her affection value remaining at 0. Jibril gasps in shock. He realizes that, almost unconsciously, his actions with Lily had succeeded where his calculated efforts with Marion had not. Haruchika reflects on his method. He understands that humans unconsciously establish hierarchies. By openly telling one receptionist that he preferred another, he elevated Lily's rank in front of her colleague, a calculated move to gain favor. The technique proves effective. Jibril celebrates as the relationship value increases, confirming that this approach works for seduction. Her celebration quickly turns to suspicion. Jibril confronts Haruchika, demanding to know if he mistook his target, referencing the disastrous outcome with Marion. With a suspicious glare, she questions his intentions. Haruchika merely considers that the context must be different this time. As they walk away, Jibril concedes that at least the relationship value is rising normally. Haruchika, however, looks on with a hint of apprehension, merely hoping that this endeavor will proceed smoothly. Later, Haruchika notes to Clementine and Jibril that his first quest is herb gathering, a classic trope he finds lazily written. Jibril immediately scolds him, reminding him to show respect as Clementine is still a divinity. She is taken aback, asking if he is serious about the quest. He studies the request. Gather 20 stalks of herbs from a patch in the forest, a half-day's journey west of the city. Jibril offers to simply give him the herbs, but Haruchika firmly refuses, stating his intent to fulfill the quest perfectly. He explains that this is a crucial time for building trust, and that girls are sharp enough to detect any fraud. To punctuate his point, he gently pokes her nose, telling her she has the wrong idea about his methods. The next day at the Adventurers Guild, Lily's colleague, Kayla, confronts her. She brings up Lily's past declaration that she would never represent anyone again. Lily defends her choice, clarifying that she only vowed not to make someone unhappy again. She chose to believe Haruchika because he promised he wouldn't die. Kayla scoffs at this. She points out that with 0 experience, Haruchika could only register at the lowest 10 rank, and the only quest available was simple herb gathering. Laughing, she tells Lily she hopes he doesn't end up regretting his confidence. Just then, the guild door swings open. A smiling Haruchika announces his return, calling out to Lily. She looks up from her desk, her expression one of pure surprise at his unexpectedly swift reappearance. She rushes to Haruchika's side, her voice filled with alarm. She asks if he is okay, if anything hurts, or if any part of him feels wrong. He tries to reassure her, telling her to calm down and that he is fine. Her concern is not unfounded. Jibril explains that the herb-gathering spot was located on a sheer cliff. She had to use her floating ability to save Haruchika when he nearly fell, a moment that left Lily clinging to him in relief. He is pleased by her concern, believing it must have significantly raised her relationship value with him. Lily murmurs her relief, thankful that nothing happened to him. However, a glance at his system reveals the shocking truth. Her affection value remains at 0, causing him to cry out in disbelief. His outburst startles Lily, who asks what is wrong. Haruchika quickly dismisses her concern, insisting that it is nothing. His abrupt denial leaves her looking dejected. Seeing her dejected expression, he internally panics, wondering if he somehow offended her despite her earlier concern. Forcing a smile, he decides to change tactics and calls out her name. Startled, Lily responds, asking what he wants. He explains that there is something he wishes to consult her about, but it is a private matter he doesn't want others to overhear. Lily suggests they move to the lounge. He dismisses the lounge idea, instead pivoting the conversation. He asks if she knows of a good restaurant, confessing that he finds eating alone to be quite lonely. Lily, taken aback, mentions that her schedule is open. Seizing the opportunity, Haruchika asks if she would have dinner with him that night. Lily agrees to his request. She tells him she will finish processing the herb exchange and that he should wait for her. A warm, gentle smile spreads across her face as she chuckles and calls him helpless. While he waits, Jibril appears beside him, expressing her astonishment. She questions how Lily could agree to dinner so readily and without complaint, wondering aloud if the receptionist is simply too easy. Haruchika merely smirks in response. He corrects Jibril's assessment. It is not, he explains with a confident grin, that Lily is easy. Rather, he orchestrated the entire exchange specifically to lead to this outcome. He explained his strategy to a bewildered Jibril. He stated that girls enjoy teaching and confirming their own usefulness, and that tapping into a maternal instinct to guide others is also a factor. By framing his request as needing help because he was lonely, he chose the easiest topic for Lily to latch onto. However, he assured Jabril that this was not the full extent of his plan. The ultimate goal, he elaborated, was to get under her protection. Once he entered that state of protective custody, her affection for him would naturally begin to sprout. He pointed to the proof of his theory, a rising affection gauge, declaring that it had already risen. Later, at the restaurant, Haruchika mused that staring at Lily made time pass instantly. She soon arrived, thanking him for waiting. He complimented her, saying her plain clothes were even cuter than her uniform, which caused her to blush and quietly murmur his name. Back at the guild, Lily's departure had not gone unnoticed. Her co-worker, Kayla, watched with a dark, resentful glare as another receptionist looked on with surprise. The dinner was a clear success. Lily smiled happily, covering her mouth as she enjoyed the meal with Haruchika. Afterwards, the two walked together through the town streets as evening fell. From a hidden vantage point, Jabril watched them, her eyes wide with astonishment at the scene unfolding before her. As the pair walked away, she checked Lily's status. Jabril's face lit up with glee as she saw the affection value had skyrocketed to 70. She pumped her fists in celebration, cheering that this was the work of her master. The next morning, Jabril was still humming with excitement. She reminded a weary Haruchika that Lily's affection had exceeded 70 the day before, predicting that his conquest might be completed today. Buoyed by her confidence, he strode towards the guild building, absolutely certain of his victory. He had shared a table with her, one-on-one. There was no way she wouldn't fall for him now. Upon his arrival, Lily greeted him with a pleasant good morning and thanked him for the previous day. But as Haruchika looked at her, he saw the impossible. Her current affection value was 0. His confident smirk vanished, replaced by a look of pure, horrified shock as he silently screamed, "Why?" At the Kurdoberg Adventurers Guild, Lily Fafner greets Haruchika Isezaki with a welcoming smile. However, Haruchika stares in disbelief at her affection value, which has inexplicably dropped to 0. He recalls that just yesterday it had climbed past 70. He stands before her, having accepted a simple quest to exterminate monsters in a dungeon that has already been cleared, and wonders how things came to this. As Lily explains the quest parameters, noting that only goblins appear on the first floor for a case like his, Haruchika remains lost in thought. He barely registers the concerned murmurs of other adventurers in the background as he internally grapples with the puzzle of Lily's affection levels. He mentally reviews the facts. The rate of affection increase slowed down around a value of 70 while they were together, but then plummeted overnight. The only logical conclusion he can reach is that her affection value drops whenever he is not by her side. This realization causes a dark expression to cross his face. Seeing his grimace, Lily's own face falls. She misinterprets his silence, sadly concluding that anything she has to say must not be worth listening to. Jabril, perched nearby, looks on in shock at the misunderstanding. Her spirits lift slightly as she murmurs that it's a relief he was listening. Snapping out of his reverie, Haruchika loudly declares that her assumption isn't true at all. He confirms he understands the job, to exterminate the goblins that spawn on the first floor of the cleared dungeon. He continues, stating that even a beginner's dungeon requires proper preparation, unlike simple herb gathering, because dangers still exist. Internally, however, he wonders if Lily's affection drops because her self-esteem is so low that her thoughts turn negative whenever she's alone. His words provoke an unexpectedly strong reaction. Lily grabs his hands, her eyes filling with tears as she insists that the quest is genuinely dangerous, shouting that she is not just being a worrywart. Haruchika is taken aback by her emotional intensity. Through her tears, Lily tells him it's okay if he fails or even runs away. She acknowledges that a guild employee saying such things is a problem, but all that truly matters to her is that he comes back alive. Haruchika can only stare, flustered. She pleads with him not to treat the situation like a joke, her expression desperate. Reassuring her, Haruchika promises he is being serious and will return safely, asking for a smile to send him off. She finally relents, asking him to be careful as he turns to leave. Unseen by them, two cloaked figures observe from the shadows. As Haruchika and Jabril walk through the forest path leading to the dungeon, Jabril offers a thought. The small angel muses that even if two people have both had their romantic feelings stolen, the way the affliction manifests might be different for each person. He walks through the woods, reflecting on the situation. Though he's only seen 2 cases, he observes that Marion and Lily are completely different. Jabril, trotting beside him, looks up and asks if that's what he's been pondering. She continues, explaining that with Lily, they need to max out her affection value all at once, noting how Marion's never went up while Lily's rises but then plummets when she's alone. Jabril then suggests they can't use the same method they used with Marion. Haruchika bluntly calls her an idiot, prompting her to shout back that he's being mean. He considers their personalities. With someone like Lily, he grimly imagines one would have to resort to extreme measures just to make her affection drop. In contrast, a strong-willed person like Marion, who once told him to get stronger, has very clear likes and dislikes, making her far more straightforward. His thoughts are interrupted when Jabril asks for the plan. He concludes that Lily's desperation and her Miss Death nickname are troubling. The only way forward, he decides, is to find a way to increase the amount of time they spend together. As they continue on their path, Jabril cheerfully announces their first task, goblin subjugation. She assures him that goblins aren't that strong, but Haruchika admits he would rather avoid fighting if he can help it. His reluctance is profound. He reflects that for someone who grew up in modern Japan, the act of killing anything, especially something shaped like a person, even in a fistfight, is an almost completely foreign concept. He tries to explain that his hesitation isn't about strength, but Jabril misunderstands. She remarks that she had the impression people reincarnated into other worlds happily go monster hunting. Haruchika can only think to himself that those kinds of people are just messed up. Their debate ceases as they arrive at their destination. Haruchika looks upon the stone in trance carved into a hillside, remarking that it has the classic look of a dungeon. Inside, he reads a sign from the Kurtoberg Adventurers Guild warning of death and forbidding entry without a request. He confirms with Jabril that only goblins appear on this floor, so they'll just do laps to exterminate them. Jabril adds that the area is fully explored and equipped with magical lights, prompting Haruchika to note how much brighter it is than he expected. A moment later, a goblin appears down the hall. Before Haruchika can even draw his sword properly, Jabril lets out a piercing scream, yelling for him to stop and watch his step. The sudden loud outburst startles him more than the monster, causing him to flinch back as he thinks about how loud she is. He and Jabril come upon a large, dark pitfall trap that has already been sprung. He reasons that if it's been triggered, someone must have already fallen in, a conclusion with which Jabril concurs. As he peers into the abyss, unable to see the bottom, Jabril perches on his head, complaining that she can't see anything either, despite boasting about her good eyesight as an angel. Annoyed, he thinks to himself that her angelic nature has nothing to do with it. Her tone suddenly shifts as she points forward, addressing him as master and alerting him that there are two goblins straight ahead. Inside a stone dungeon, Haruchika Isezaki takes a steadying breath, gripping the sword in his hand. With a look of determination, he resolves to press forward, deciding to simply go for it. As he advances down the long, brick-lined corridor, his first adversaries appear. Two small, goblin-like creatures shriek as they spot him, one brandishing a whip and the other a crude club. He lunges into action without a moment's hesitation. His blade becomes a swift arc of steel, cutting down the creatures in a rapid, efficient sequence of attacks as they cry out in pain and surprise. Catching his breath after the short battle, Haruchika pants heavily. Jabril appears, praising him for the impressive display, but he admits that he still has a bad feeling. Her expression suddenly turns serious as she calls his name, sensing danger. He asks her what's wrong. She urgently warns him that someone is approaching from the front, and from behind as well. Haruchika's eyes widen in shock, realizing they're being trapped in a pincer movement. He demands to know how she can tell, since he can't see them. Jabril explains that she possesses super-sensitive hearing, an ability she calls devil ears, which allows her to detect the approaching footsteps. His expression hardens at the confirmation of a new threat. He wonders aloud if there are other people in the dungeon, perhaps another party who took the same extermination quest. The distinct sound of footsteps now echoes from both ends of the corridor, confirming Jabril's warning. Haruchika tenses, gripping his sword tightly as he prepares for an attack from two directions. From the darkness ahead, a group of figures emerges. They are all clad in dark, hooded cloaks that completely obscure their faces, and they draw their swords with clear, hostile intent. Jabril panics as Haruchika shouts in disbelief, noting that the newcomers don't look like they are just passing by. Facing the armed group, he yells, demanding to know who they are. He stands his ground, his mind flashing back to a harsh training session. Marion Bonnet's sharp critique echoes in his memory. He has so little real combat experience that a random person off the street would be better. She acknowledged his decent instincts, but condemned his tendency to flinch at every little thing, calling him a chicken who would die if he didn't overcome it. Her proposed solution had been brutal. Perhaps he would finally get used to it if they beat him to within an inch of his life. As Marion stared him down, Jabril had simply urged him to get ready. That painful lesson now proves its worth as the cloaked figures surge forward. With Marion's voice in his head ordering him not to flinch, Haruchika dodges the initial assault, their blades shattering the stone floor where he just stood. He pivots into a defensive stance, raising his own sword just in time to parry a downward slash from one of the assailants. The parry leaves him open. Another figure lunges in, landing a solid kick to his side that sends him stumbling back with a grunt of pain. He regains his footing, his mind working furiously. He assesses his opponents. They aren't on the level of Marion or McAllister, but they are relentless. He realizes that against these numbers, it's a losing battle of attrition and questions if they're truly trying to kill him. Seeing him overwhelmed, Jabril panics. She shouts that she will teleport them away so they can escape, but Haruchika sharply cuts her off, telling her to wait. He leans in close, his eyes fixed on the enemy. He whispers to a confused Jabril, asking what would happen after they escape, while noticing the attackers have paused, seemingly listening in. With a look of grim determination, he simply says, "All right." Jabril, understanding his unspoken intent, give a firm nod. Haruchika turns back to the enemy group, shouting, "Let's go." He explodes in emotion, charging directly at the group in front of him. His goal is a 1-point breakthrough. He leaps and delivers a powerful kick to the face of the lead assailant, who shouts in pain as his comrades yell in anger. His kick connects squarely with an assailant's head, sending the cloaked figure stumbling back. The forceful blow creates the opening he needs, and he surges forward through the gap in the enemy line, with Jabril close behind. The sudden breakthrough throws the ambushers into disarray. Their leader, watching Haruchika and Jabril flee down the corridor, clicks his tongue in frustration and furiously screams at his subordinates to get after them. They race down the stone passageway. Jabril shouts encouragement, telling her master they are almost there. He affirms her words, his expression tense as he concentrates on not messing up the timing of their plan. Their path ends abruptly at a deep pitfall. The pursuing figures watch from the edge as the pair plummets into the darkness. One of the ambushers laughs, mocking their target for falling into the trap. Far below, the city of Kurdoberg lies unaware. Meanwhile, in a quiet room within that same city, a simple wooden bed sits neatly made. Suddenly, the air above the bed shimmers and warps. A glowing, intricate magical circle materializes, and from its swirling center, Haruchika and Jabril emerge, tumbling out of the portal. They crash onto the mattress in a heap, the teleportation spell concluding just as they make impact. A moment later, Haruchika sits up, looking around the unfamiliar room in a daze. He asks where they are and if they managed to escape. Jabril, still dizzy, confirms that her teleportation worked and that they are safe inside an inn in Kurdoberg. He breathes a sigh of relief, acknowledging it was a very close call. She looks up at him, addressing him as master. With sweat on his brow, he lets out a shaky breath and remarks that a person would need a dozen lives for this kind of work. Jabril then explains that she teleported them the instant they fell into the pit, just as he had instructed. But she looks at him with wide, questioning eyes, asking why. She reasons that it would have been far safer to simply teleport away from the ambush from the very beginning. She looks at him, utterly perplexed. From his position on the bed in the inn room, Haruchika explains that his convoluted plan was necessary so their pursuers would believe he had died back in the dungeon. As sweat drips down his face, he clenches his teeth, a pained grin forming. He had seen it, a path to winning over Lily. While he endures the pain, Jabril panics beside him, shouting that she will heal him immediately. Inside the Adventurers Guild, the main hall is filled with the lively clamor of patrons eating, drinking, and conversing, a typical day of boisterous activity. Just outside the receptionist's window, a group of adventurers mockingly recounts their recent success. One boasts that yesterday's job was far too easy, while his companion calls him an idiot for nearly falling into a trap. Their large, brutish boss silences them, complaining they're being too loud. From her desk, Lily Fafner overhears their conversation. Her expression darkens with sorrow as a grim realization settles in. She knew it. No one was coming back from that quest. Her despair deepens as the whispers of the other guild members echo around her. They gossip about the adventurer Lily was assigned to having died, reinforcing her unfortunate moniker, Miss Death. Suddenly, the sharp sound of the guild's main door swinging open cuts through the din. Lily, the scarred adventurer, and his spiky-haired companion all turn their heads toward the entrance. Standing confidently in the doorway is Haruchika, completely unscathed. The faces of the brutish adventurer and his subordinate contort in shock, while Lily looks up, her eyes wide with disbelief and filling with tears. He confers quietly with Jabril, who is perched on his shoulder, asking if anyone looks surprised by his appearance. She confirms that they did. His suspicion confirmed, a smirk spreads across his face. Jabril notes that the group at the second table matches the number of assailants from the day before, and Haruchika recognizes one as the man who spoke to him on his first day. As he processes this, Lily rushes toward him, crying out his name. She confronts him, tears streaming down her face, shouting that a simple, "I'm back," is not enough. She demands to know if he has any idea how worried she was when he didn't return yesterday. Her emotional outburst catches him completely by surprise. His confident expression vanishes, replaced by a flustered look as he can only stammer out an apology. He attempts to apologize for the trouble he caused, but Lily, her eyes welling with tears, is simply relieved that he is safe. Between sniffles, she frantically asks if he is hurt. Brushing off her concern, he calmly states that he is fine and needs to speak with someone in charge to report an incident. Jabril appears, chastising him for acting as if he wasn't just hurt, while Lily seems puzzled by his request. In the background, the two adventurers who ambushed him stare in disbelief. He insists that it is a serious matter. Lily, wide-eyed, asks if he means the guild master. Internally, Haruchika realizes her frantic reaction stems from her role as his handler, a thought that makes her blush deeply. She asks him to wait for a moment. As Lily rushes off calling his name, the two guilty adventurers begin to panic. One frets that Haruchika is about to report their attack, but the other, more composed, reassures him that since their faces were not seen, they simply need to act normal, and there will be no problem. Moments later, Haruchika is brought into the guild master's office. A gruff, older man smoking a cigar, identified as Guild Master Bonzo, sits behind a large desk with his secretary, Amelia, at his side. Bonzo cuts straight to the chase, acknowledging Haruchika by name and telling him to dispense with the preamble. The man formally introduces himself as Guild Master Bonzo and his secretary, Amelia. As Haruchika, Lily, and Jabril stand before the desk, Jabril quietly remarks on the Guild Master's forceful demeanor. Bonzo impatiently prompts Haruchika to speak. Undeterred, Haruchika maintains a steady gaze. Lily whispers an apology for her superior's impatient nature, but Haruchika begins to speak with purpose, stating he is there for one reason: to tell the guild master something specific. He continues, his voice clear and direct as he stands beside a nervous Lily and delivers his message to the head of the Kurtoberg Adventurers Guild, that you're incompetent. The declaration hangs in the air. Bonzo exhales a cloud of smoke, a slight smirk on his face as he remarks on Haruchika's nerve. Beside him, Amelia, Lily, and Jabril are all stunned into silence by the sheer audacity of the statement. His amusement vanishes in an instant. The guild master leans forward, his eyes narrowed and intense, crushing his cigar on the desk. He demands an explanation, stating that Haruchika would not call a man incompetent without a valid reason. The guild master's angry demand was met not with an apology, but with a cool, dismissive reply. Of course not, Haruchika stated, his expression unyielding. As Jabril peeked from behind him with wide, shocked eyes, he continued his explanation, a memory of the ambush flashing through his mind. Yesterday in the dungeon, he declared, I was attacked by a group of adventurers from this very guild. Lily Fafner reels in shock as Haruchika ISEKAI'D dismisses the guild master's platitudes. He clarifies that the attack itself wasn't the issue, but the reason behind it. Guild Master Bonzo, smoking a cigar, seems unconcerned, stating that while it's against the rules, he wouldn't call Haruchika incompetent over something so trivial and that he should have acted instead of complaining. He counters that as a newcomer, he has no enemies. He posits that the attack was likely a robbery or a personal grudge, but Bonzo presses for the true reason. With sudden intensity, Haruchika declares that the attackers were after Lily, their goal being to kill the adventurer she was supervising and disgrace her with the moniker Miss Death. The declaration shocks Bonzo, his secretary Amelia, and Lily. Haruchika presses on, asserting it's the only explanation that makes sense. Someone with a grudge is actively trying to ruin Lily's reputation. As he speaks, Amelia quietly confirms to the guildmaster that the anti-eavesdropping spell is active. His anger then boils over. He furiously confronts Bonzo, demanding to know how many have died and how much this has hurt Lily. He roars that it's pure incompetence to let this continue, reminding the guildmaster that he was the one who brought Lily from the Central District. As Lily watches with tears in her eyes, Haruchika questions what the ultimate goal of disgracing her could be. He scoffs, sarcastically asking how he would know the answer and pointing out that investigation is the guild's job. He asks if they have any leads on the culprits. When Amelia remains silent, he suggests capturing one, but she snaps at him. Lily calls out his name, and he turns to her, defensively asking if she thinks he's stupid. Amelia cuts in sharply, telling Haruchika that's enough. She explains that the attackers are merely disposable pawns. Even if they were captured and interrogated, there's no guarantee they would lead them to the mastermind. Bonzo listens to her assessment with a thoughtful expression. Bonzo concedes the point, deciding to let the culprits run free for now under surveillance. He asks who is leading the case, and Haruchika brings up Sledge, the man who hassled him on his first day. Lily confirms the name. With the strategy set, Haruchika moves on to his demands. Until the culprits are caught, he wants a safe house to lay low. Bonzo agrees. He then adds one more thing. He wants Lily assigned to him to tend to his personal needs. Bonzo calmly agrees. The demand is too much for Amelia, who erupts, questioning how far he intends to push his luck. Lily, now bound in ropes, looks on in utter disbelief. He glares back, his teeth gritted, and shouts that he's being so thick-headed because he's going to protect her. He explains that as they get closer to the mastermind, Lily herself will become a target. His declaration hangs in the air as Bonzo questions how they can trust him not to take advantage of the situation with Lily. Haruchika bluntly states they have no choice but to trust him. He then turns the final decision over to the beastwoman herself, asking Lily what she wants to do. She looks up at him, her expression unreadable. She looks up, her expression resolute, and declares her trust in Haruchika, affirming her new role as his handler. A strange metric appears, indicating her current affection value is 30. With the decision made, the guild master Bonzo sighs and instructs his secretary, Amelia, to show Haruchika the way. Amelia acknowledges the order with a curt "sir," but her sharp glance towards Haruchika reveals her displeasure as she tells him to follow. Before leaving, he turns back to Bonzo, correcting the guild master's earlier assessment of him. He states plainly that he is neither incompetent nor a fool. A small smile plays on Bonzo's lips, amused by the young man's audacity. Haruchika then turns and exits the office. Moments later, he and Amelia are on horseback, galloping swiftly through a wooded path away from the city. His inexperience shows as he struggles to control his mount, with Lily riding behind him. Amelia, riding ahead with perfect form, glances back with a scornful expression, calling him a pathetic man for being unable to even ride a horse. He shouts back defensively that people don't get a chance to ride horses where he comes from, while Jabril calls him lame. Amelia ignores his outburst and instead asks Lily if she is truly okay with having a man like that riding behind her. Lily meekly affirms that she is. Their journey ends at a secluded two-story house. Amelia announces their arrival, and Haruchika expresses his surprise at how nice it is. She explains that it's stocked with 10 days of rations, has a well out back, and contains most daily necessities. Lily, however, looks on with some apprehension. Before departing, Amelia grabs Haruchika and delivers a chilling threat. If he dares to lay a hand on Lily, the entire guild will hunt him down and kill him. As she rides off, Haruchika wonders aloud why she hates him so much. Lily explains it's because Amelia deeply respects the guildmaster. Amelia's final thought is a warning for him to be prepared. Watching Amelia leave, Lily shyly announces she's going to check out the inside of the house. Haruchika watches her go, reflecting that between Marion and now Amelia, he just doesn't seem to get along with strong-willed women. As he muses, Jabril startles him by asking about his speed. He realizes she's teasing him about his quick succession of interactions with women, and he enters the house looking flustered. He is immediately questioned by Jabril about his recent forwardness. She points out his usual nice guy act and demands to know why he provoked the guildmaster. Admitting the tense confrontation had her on the edge of her seat, she continues, asking if his goal was simply to get Lily to agree to them hiding out alone together. With a confident expression, he confirms that was precisely his objective. His blunt admission leaves Jabril momentarily stunned before she agrees with the logic. From her own perspective, Clementine observes that being asked to live alone with a man who isn't one's lover is not a request a normal person would accept. He reflects on the added difficulty of the situation, recalling that on top of everything else, Lily's current affection value for him was at 0 when they first entered that room. He begins to explain his strategy, outlining a psychological principle known as reciprocity. He illustrates that when someone receives a favor, they feel a natural obligation to repay it. Applying this, he reveals that he first staged a show of getting angry on Lily's behalf. This act made her feel indebted, creating a sense of obligation that compelled her to accept the otherwise unthinkable proposal of living with him. Jabril is astounded by the calculated plan, asking if it was all an act and praising him as her master. He offers only a vague, non-committal response. In any case, with his plan successful, he turns his attention to the safe house. He internally declares that the stage is now set to win Lily over. All that remains is to unleash his moves. Inside, Lily surveys the dusty, unkempt room. After a slight cough, she determines that their first task should be to start cleaning. Her cleaning preparations are cut short when she opens the door to the bedroom and stops in shock. There is only a single bed. Flushed and stammering, she turns and asks what they are supposed to do. In a wooden bathtub, Lily Fafner lets out a long, weary sigh. She sinks into the warm water, her ears drooping as she reflects on her own perceived failure. She inwardly laments how she could have messed up so badly right away, simply because she was nervous. Her distress stemmed from the moments just before. After arriving, Haruchika had turned to her and announced that, for now, he would go make some tea. Lily could only watch, momentarily uncertain, as he walked away. He then paused, turning back to ask if she needed a hand with anything. The unexpected offer caught Lily completely off guard, and she let out a startled yelp. Despite the shock, she quickly tried to compose herself, closing her eyes to focus. However, her mind flashed back to her earlier clumsiness, a series of stumbles and falls. Alone in the bath, she worried if Haruchika was now disappointed in her. Her anxiety intensified with the realization that a man, Haruchika, was just on the other side of the door. The thought of her being naked so close to him made her flush, and she frantically told herself not to dwell on it. On the other side of that same door, Haruchika was also struggling to keep his composure, muttering to himself to calm down as steam billowed out from the bathroom. Sometime later, they were seated at a table. Haruchika sipped his tea, observing Lily with a thoughtful expression. He mused that, at the very least, she seemed to be aware that they were alone together. As he leaned back, contemplating his next move, Jabril suddenly appeared behind his shoulder. Haruchika's mind was already focused on the true problem, how to raise Lily's affection value from its current state. She, seemingly privy to his thoughts, posed a simple question. Wouldn't the affection just go up on its own if they spent more time together? Haruchika looked away, flatly rejecting the idea. No way. He turned to Jabril, placing a finger on her lips. He began to explain that many people misunderstand how attraction works, preparing to lecture her on the psychological principle known as the mere exposure effect. He clarifies the principle, explaining that while repeated exposure can increase fondness, the key is frequency, not duration. A single brief greeting is one instance of exposure. 30 such greetings are far more effective than one long, uninterrupted period together. In fact, he elaborates, spending too much time together at once might just cause the target to grow accustomed to his presence. This would stabilize her affection, neither increasing nor decreasing it. Jibril, processing this, realizes the butterflies would simply disappear, a conclusion Haruchika confirms is correct. This is precisely why he declares with sudden intensity that he must do something. His outburst startles Lily, who nervously asks what he means. He quickly backpedals, stammering that he was merely thinking about the plan to catch the mastermind, the one he had discussed with the guildmaster. Before he can elaborate, Lily interrupts with a worried plea. She begs him not to be reckless, reminding him that they are supposed to be laying low. She explains that she doesn't want the people under her charge to be put in any more danger. Haruchika's expression turns serious as he listens, acknowledging her point with a quiet affirmation. Her shoulders slump as she sits, her voice soft with apprehension. She asks him if it is true that the adventurers she was assigned were killed specifically to bring disgrace upon her. He confirms that while there is no proof yet, the chances are high. However, when he asks if she can think of any reason why, Lily quietly states that she believes that isn't the real reason. She looks up, her expression resigned, and suggests the true cause is simply that she is a beastman. In response, Haruchika begins to lecture, stating that while discrimination is terrible for the one receiving it, if you boil it all down, it is ultimately just a matter of like or dislike. Haruchika explains his reasoning, stating that simple preference for or against beastmen isn't enough motivation for someone to risk their life to kill. He concludes that the real reason must be something else. Lily, her expression troubled, quietly repeats his words, wondering what that other reason could be. He turns away, assuring her that it's not her fault. He observes that it's always the serious ones who think they are the cause of the problem, and tells her it's fine if she can't think of anything. Lily timidly asks if his perspective isn't a little too extreme. Unfazed, Haruchika continues his monologue, asserting that malice is born from within a person and that the one who creates an opportunity for it is the one responsible. Just as a thief might decide to steal something that looks easy to take. Applying his logic directly to her, he slams his hand against the wall next to her head. He declares that even if someone like Lily were to act selfishly, her version of assertiveness would only be on par with that of a normal person. He dismisses her worries, telling her it's fine. Leaning in closer, he challenges her, asking if he is wrong. Flustered and blushing, Lily stammers that his idea is ridiculous, but quietly admits that he has a point. At her reaction, Haruchika bursts into laughter. Lily, caught off guard by his amusement, lets out a small, embarrassed chuckle of her own. His laughter subsides as he notices Lily's hair is still soaked, even after she changed her clothes. Warning her that she'll catch a cold, he turns to Jibril and asks if she can use wind magic to dry it. Jibril confirms that she can. As Jibril announces her intent to use a wind spell to blow the moisture away, a powerful gust begins to form around her hand. Lily quickly tries to stop her, insisting it's okay and that beastmen are sturdy. But it's too late. The blast of wind magic is far too strong, launching Lily into the air. She ends up clinging desperately to the ceiling as Haruchika and Jibril stare up in shock. Back on the ground, a deeply flushed and mortified Lily explains to a horrified Haruchika that for a beastman, being touched on the ears or tail is an extremely intimate gesture, almost akin to a sexual act. The revelation leaves Haruchika frozen in shock. Still reeling from the incident, Lily is met with an even more mortified Haruchika. He prostrates himself on the floor, shouting that he was careless and that he is sorry. Flustered, she insists that she is the one who should be apologizing. The air hangs thick with their mutual apologies, creating an intensely awkward silence. Lily, her face flushed with embarrassment, looks away and quietly acknowledges that she knows he didn't mean any harm. Despite her words, the damage is done. Jibril, perched on Haruchika's back, cheerfully announces that Lily's affection value has plummeted to 11, a loss of 20 points. Haruchika realizes his attempt to earn favor with physical contact has backfired spectacularly and groans for Jibril to get off him. As Jibril's report sinks in, a horrifying thought dawns on Haruchika. He realizes that for a beastman, his actions were likely the equivalent of trying to grab a normal human woman's chest. The thought makes the situation infinitely worse. He clenches his jaw, a new resolve forming in his eyes. Jibril, held in his arms, panics, asking what he's planning to do and calling him a pervert. Haruchika tells her to calm down, reasoning that since they've only just started living together, they still have plenty of moves they can make. His bravado is short-lived, as he admits he doesn't actually have a specific plan. Before he can flounder further, Lily timidly interrupts, changing the subject by asking if there is anything he would like for dinner. Her question brings a sense of normalcy back to the room. She explains that she checked the pantry earlier and found that while the ingredients are all non-perishables, they have plenty of meat, fish, and other staples. She opens a cabinet, revealing the contents, and recommends the seafood, noting that Kurtoberg is a port town. Haruchika stares in surprise, realizing the cabinet is some kind of magical refrigerator. This wasn't part of his plan, but it's a welcome development. An idea strikes him. He declares that he will make dinner tonight, seeing it as a perfect opportunity to earn back the affection points he just lost. His sudden declaration earns a positive reaction from Jabril, who exclaims that he's a perfect cook, too. Haruchika, striking a pose, explains that a man has to have a chance to look cool in front of girl. Lily, however, looks on in complete confusion. She and Jabril watch as, 30 minutes later, Haruchika presents his finished dish. On the plate sits a single fish, burnt to a blackened crisp. Despite the obvious failure, a smug smile plays on Haruchika's lips. In response to the culinary disaster, Haruchika collapses to his knees in mock despair. Lily immediately rushes to his side, reassuring him that it's all right. Jabril, however, is utterly horrified, screaming that he has failed completely. Jabril quickly recovers, admitting she is a little relieved to discover something he is not good at. Lily, ever practical, suggests that the meal might be salvageable if they just scrape off the burnt parts. As she speaks, Haruchika's expression, hidden from her view, twists into a cunning grin. He thinks to himself that everything is going just as planned, letting out a low, triumphant chuckle as Jabril watches in confusion. He turns back to them with a sheepish look, apologizing and claiming he was just trying to show off. Lily expresses her concern, telling him that everyone makes mistakes. At that moment, Jabril stares at her metrics, announcing that Lily's affection value has actually gone up. Jabril is utterly baffled by this development, shrieking in disbelief that his failure resulted in an increase. Haruchika, meanwhile, silently thanks Lily for her kindness, internally gloating that the idea of a man who can cook being attractive is a complete myth. His confident internal monologue prompts Jabril to question if he's really going to maintain his arrogant stance. Haruchika simply reaffirms his position, stating once more that he is a perfect man and that they have already established this fact. He then explains his logic. If a perfect man serves a perfect meal, it can intimidate his partner. He notes that his approach must be tailored to Lily's low self-esteem. As he speaks, Lily looks down, dejectedly wondering what her purpose is. The pieces finally click into place for Jabril, who realizes he failed on purpose. Haruchika confirms her suspicion with a smug look, referencing a real-world study known as the coffee experiment. He elaborates on the experiment's findings. When a person perceived as clumsy makes a mistake like spilling coffee, their likability drops. However, when a competent and put-together person does the same, their likability actually increases, as the blunder makes them seem more human and approachable. He explains to a skeptical Jabril that for a man as perfect as himself, even failure becomes part of his charm, creating a sense of familiarity. Jabril finds his absolute lack of self-doubt strange, but Haruchika dismisses her, telling her it's time for the next step and to just watch. Putting his plan into motion, he turns to Lily with a vulnerable expression, asking if she would mind looking after him as he feels he can't manage alone. Lily enthusiastically agrees, promising to do her very best. He thanks her, saying her presence is a huge help, causing her to blush. This tactic plays on a well-documented social dynamic. While it was once thought that charming dependency appealed to maternal instincts, a survey of 1,700 people confirmed a different truth. The youngest children, often cheeky and adept at being doted on, are in fact the most popular. He continues, confiding in Lily that even he has moments where he needs to lean on someone. He laments that, unfortunately, as an eldest son, he belongs to the type of people who are the worst at being doted upon. He internally revels in his strategy. Right after a failure, he uses the opportunity to slip beneath his partner's low self-esteem, boldly positioning himself as someone who needs their protection. The effect is immediate. Lily's affection value rises to 55 as a deep blush covers her face, with a promise that it will climb even higher. The two are then seen eating together, his plan having successfully created an atmosphere of comfortable intimacy. Later, in their assigned room, Haruchika freezes in shock. There is only one bed. Lily quietly confirms the fact. Lily immediately states that it would be improper for a staff member like her to receive better treatment than an adventurer. Haruchika quickly cuts her off, insisting she take the bed while he sleeps on the floor. She hesitates, but he remains firm, reiterating that he cannot allow her to sleep on the floor under any circumstances. Startled by her continued silence, Haruchika turns back, only for Lily to timidly ask if he is sure. Then, blushing profoundly, she suggests that perhaps they should share the bed. Her face flushed and beaded with sweat, Lily looks toward Haruchika with wide, earnest eyes. Despite her obvious nervousness, she stammers out a declaration. I trust you. With the decision made, Haruchika settles onto one side of the bed. Lily, her tail twitching nervously, apologetically murmurs, "Excuse me," as she carefully climbs in behind him. They settle in, lying back-to-back with a noticeable space between them. Haruchika quickly wishes her a good night and seems to fall asleep almost instantly. Lily, however, is wide awake, her eyes staring into the darkness. She thinks to herself that even though she was the one who suggested it, there's no way she can possibly sleep in this situation. As morning light streams through the window, Lily Fafner sits up in bed, her expression weary. It was, she thinks, an unbelievable night. She couldn't sleep a single wink. She turns her gaze to Haruchika, sleeping soundly beside her. A low murmur escapes her as she wonders how he can possibly rest so peacefully in this situation. A wave of insecurity washes over her, and she impulsively moves to straddle him as he sleeps. Her face flushes as she questions if she is truly that unappealing. From the foot of the bed, a tiny, shocked Jibril demands to know what she is thinking. Just then, Haruchika's eyes flutter open. He groggily greets Lily with a simple morning. Caught completely off guard, she lets out a startled yelp. Overcome with embarrassment, she scrambles off the bed, stammering that she's going to prepare breakfast before hastily exiting the room. Haruchika sits up, calmly watching her go. Once she is gone, Jibril asks how he could sleep so soundly next to a girl. With a sigh, Haruchika explains that it's only natural for him, as he has perfected a sleep induction method known as progressive muscle relaxation, which allows him to conserve stamina. He adds that as long as he can check his experiment's results upon waking, it's not a problem. Jibril declares his reasoning is past amazing and just plain creepy. Haruchika then recalls the parameters of his experiment, remembering that Lily's affection value drops if she moves too far away from him. He and Jibril peer out from the bedroom, observing Lily in the kitchen. A mental display confirms her current affection value is 61. Haruchika muses on whether he can maintain this level simply by staying near her, without any further action. Jibril, perched on his shoulder, exclaims that of course it went up, confirming it was only 55 the day before. He casually calls her clueless for being surprised. Annoyed, Jibril retorts that a normal girl would be acutely aware of a boy getting into bed with her. She finishes by stating that she can't speak for him because he is utterly clueless about these things. She optimistically declares that at this rate, they can raise the affection value even more today. Haruchika, however, looks away with a tired expression and flatly disagrees, stating that it probably won't be that easy. He prompts her to think back to their outing, reminding her how the number's growth suddenly became much harder once it surpassed 70. Jibril, taken aback, can only ask why that is. Haruchika theorizes that the slowdown isn't because of Lily's curse, but rather a result of her personality, picturing her looking shy and withdrawn. Jibril is shocked that he noticed this detail. He explains that Lily is the type of person who is smart and friendly, but becomes timid and overthinks things the moment a relationship starts to feel like real romance, getting cold feet. She asks if there's a way to deal with this personality trait. Haruchika's response is a curt and definitive nope. Jibril shrieks in disbelief, questioning if there's truly no solution. He quickly clarifies, telling her not to get him wrong. As Lily brings him what appears to be breakfast, he explains his meaning. It's not that there's no way to raise her affection, just no way to do it all at once. He asserts that as long as he chooses his words carefully and they remain close, the value will surely increase. Lily agrees, quietly wondering if he overheard her earlier thoughts. With Lily's affection value holding at 70, Haruchika's internal monologue confirms his prediction. Progress slows after this point, and the only path forward is to raise it steadily. He sighs, relieved, as they prepare to head out. He begins to lecture her, stating that from here on, it's all about conversation. He declares that the most important thing in a conversation with a girl is listening. Lily listens intently, her face flushed as she thinks her cheeks might fall off from blushing. He continues his lesson, explaining that one must tell story. He posits that women are more emotionally driven and uninterested in abstract theories, which he claims is the domain of unpopular men who focus on logic. Lily smiles, captivated by his passionate explanation. He continues his lesson, explaining that even if a man wins an argument, he becomes a pathetic loser in the game of love. Girls, he insists, are not looking for the correct opinion. They simply want empathy. The worst thing a man can do is try to one-up a girl's story by complaining that his own job is also tough. He then provides her with a simple toolkit of phrases. You're right, totally, I know, right? And I get it. These, he promises, are all she needs to use to make the affection value increase. As Lily absorbs this, her ears suddenly twitch. She alerts Haruchika that she hears the sound of hooves approaching. He turns to her, asking what's wrong. The sound heralds the arrival of another receptionist, Kayla. Haruchika's demeanor instantly changes to one of shock and hostility as he recognizes her. With Lily looking on in surprise, he confronts the newcomer, demanding to know what she is doing there. A woman with long, dark hair tied in a ponytail introduces herself to Haruchika and Lily. With a confident smile, she tells Haruchika not to give her a scary look, explaining that she is merely a messenger from the guildmaster. He continues to stare at her with intense suspicion, a bead of sweat forming on his temple, while Lily watches with a worried expression. His suspicion gives way to a direct question. He demands to know why she is here instead of the usual secretary. As the tension builds, Jibril cheerfully announces from the background that she will go make some tea. The woman, Kayla, explains that Secretary Amelia is busy and doesn't bother trekking out for every little thing. She playfully pokes Haruchika's chest, her smirk widening. Internally, Haruchika seethes, concluding that the guild master must be truly incompetent to assign such a suspicious person as a messenger. Leaning closer, she chides him for looking at her with such scary eyes, especially since she claims to have gone out of her way to bring him good news. The mention of good news piques his interest. Kayla then reveals that the men who attacked him have been identified, causing Lily to gasp in relief, while Haruchika remains cautiously silent. The scene briefly shifts to Guild Master Bonzo, who explains the plan to his secretary, Amelia. He declares that tonight, they will lure the culprits out with a fake quest, and he himself will take them all down in one fell swoop. Haruchika and Jibril are shown reacting with shock. Returning to the conversation, Kayla relays that for the subsequent interrogation, the guild master wants them to show their faces at the guild tomorrow afternoon. Lily expresses her gladness, believing they are safe now. Haruchika remarks that it will all be over by tonight anyway, as the guild master wouldn't fail. Unfazed, Kayla sips her tea and abruptly asks, "You two done the deed yet?" Her blunt question catches both Haruchika and Lily completely off guard. They both blush intensely, stammering in unison that, of course, they have not. Kayla presses them, asking why not, and questioning if Haruchika dislikes beastmen. This provokes an outburst from Haruchika. He shouts that of course not, that Lily is adorable, and that he feels he's doing a damn good job holding himself back. He declares that he refuses to be the kind of scumbag who would take advantage of their situation. He is left utterly flustered by Kayla's teasing. She continues her verbal assault, laughing as she points out that after a girl spends days alone with a man in a cabin, her marriage prospects dim, so it makes no difference. She then directly accuses Haruchika of fabricating the entire farce precisely because he wants to marry Lily. Both Haruchika and Lily react with wide-eyed, blushing shock. His denial is immediate and loud, as he shouts, questioning how she could possibly reach such a conclusion. Lily is equally stunned. Unfazed, Kayla waves a dismissive hand, stating that she has delivered her message and is now leaving. She adds that they will learn more the next day when the captured attackers are interrogated. As she turns to go, she gives one final instruction, to be at the guild the following afternoon. With a final "got it?" she departs, leaving Haruchika and Lily standing in stunned silence. The silence is broken by Lily, who, with a deep blush, quietly concedes that it's true, her marriage prospects might now be gone. A flustered Haruchika tries to brush it off as nonsense, but Lily simply agrees with him, saying she knows. He internally grapples with the situation, realizing that if he were to declare, "Then I'll marry you," her affection for him would likely soar. However, he catches himself before the thought can be completed. Lily's voice pulls him from his thoughts, asking if he is sad that their time together will be over tomorrow. He turns to her with a confident smile, admitting he is a little sad. He explains that an opportunity like this, getting 3 square meals, naps included, and the chance to spend time with a cute girl, is a rare one. His compliment leaves Lily blushing, muttering his name and calling him a joker. Later that night, Haruchika confirms the cabin door is securely locked. He reassures himself that even if Kayla is plotting something, they should be safe from any nighttime attacks. He reasons that as long as he isn't incapacitated instantly, he can use his teleportation skill to escape. A short while later, Lily emerges, her skin still flush from a bath. She informs Haruchika that it is now ready for him. He observes her, realizing that Kayla's provocative talk about marriage has caused Lily to see him differently. A quick check confirms her affection value has surged to 90. He considers this unexpected outcome a blessing in disguise. With this new development, he confers with Jibril, outlining his plan. He theorizes that the experience will conclude when they leave the cabin the next morning. If Lily feels a sense of loss at their parting, her affection for him will probably reach its maximum level. Jibril enthusiastically agrees, cheering that he is just one step away. Later that night, the two lie in the same bed, turned away from each other. While Haruchika appears to be sound asleep, Lily is still awake. She turns her head slightly and whispers into the quiet room. "Haruchika-san, are you awake?" She watched him sleep, marveling at how quickly the master of stillness had drifted off. As Jibril poked at his cheek, Lily felt a profound sense of safety and comfort she had never experienced before, being this close to someone. It was a first for her, and she savored the peaceful sound of his breathing. Wanting to prolong the feeling, she quietly asked if she could stay a little closer. Haruchika remained fast asleep. Jibril, however, was flustered by the sight, declaring that good kids shouldn't be watching and that she was going to sleep now. But as Lily settled in, a strange stillness fell over her. Her eyes went blank as a glowing, star-shaped sigil materialized on the floor. Under its influence, she rose stiffly from the bed and began to walk out of the room in a trance. Outside in the woods, 2 men watched. One noted her arrival. The other, a man with a prominent scar, confirmed their plan had worked like a charm. The hypnotic sound, which only beastmen could hear, had successfully lured her out. Lily emerged from the inn, her steps mechanical. As she approached, the scarred man and another subordinate lecherously asked their boss if they could have their way with her before they departed. Their intentions were clear. Their boss immediately shut them down, roaring at the idiots not to dare touch the merchandise. He commanded them to simply tie her up. A desperate cry pierced the night. "Master!" The cry belonged to Jibril, who was frantically shaking a groggy Haruchika. He mumbled, thinking it was morning, but Jibril yelled that this was no time for that. Lily was gone. The words finally registered. Haruchika shot up in bed, his eyes wide with shock as he stared at the empty space beside him and the open door to the room. He clenched his teeth, turning to Jabril to ask if she could sense Lily's location. His gaze then fell on Lily's shoes, left behind. A grim certainty washed over him. She wouldn't just wander out barefoot. She had been taken. His mind racing, Haruchika quickly dressed. Jabril, floating beside him, reported with a grimace that she couldn't sense Lily's magical energy anywhere in the immediate vicinity. Realizing they had to move fast, he demanded to know if she could take them to the teleport guild. Jabril affirmed his command without hesitation. As they prepared to give chase, Lily was being transported away, bound and gagged in the back of a rumbling cart. She inwardly cursed their situation. They had been so close to maximizing the affection value, and she knew that with his separation, it would begin to decay once more. Fueled by this urgency, Haruchika broke into a sprint, Jabril keeping pace beside him. He shouted his resolve, vowing to find Lily as quickly as possible. Jabril echoed his determination, and together they raced onward. Haruchika Isezaki, with Jabril in tow, bursts into the Kurdoberg Adventurers Guild. He frantically scans the room, demanding to know if anyone has seen the men who attacked him. At the reception desk, Kayla stares in disbelief, wondering how he could possibly be there already. Her face twists in panic. She internally calculates that it should have taken him an entire day to get there from the cabin on foot. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she resolves to feign composure. Her attempt at composure is immediately shattered when he slams his hands on her desk, shouting and demanding to know where she took Lily. She shoves him back, her voice booming as she reminds him that violence inside the guild is grounds for an immediate ban. She tells him not to play dumb, but then her expression shifts to one of feigned innocence as she asks why Lily wasn't with him, claiming to have no idea what happened. Seizing the moment, she points a finger at Haruchika and yells for the other adventurers to help her apprehend the hooligan. The patrons in the guild hall, drawn by the shouting, turn their attention to the confrontation, with one man questioning what is being done to Kayla. Haruchika, holding Jabril close, spins to face the approaching crowd. He shouts at them, calling them idiots for being so easily deceived. The escalating chaos brings Guild Master Bonzo and his secretary, Amelia, to the scene. Bonzo roars at Haruchika, demanding to know what happened to Lily. Haruchika declares that Lily was kidnapped and that Kayla orchestrated it. As Amelia suggests they take the discussion elsewhere, Bonzo furiously orders both Haruchika and Kayla to his office. Inside the office, Bonzo glares at the young man, gesturing at the mess outside. He angrily reminds Haruchika that he had entrusted Lily to him based on his promise to protect her at all costs. He then turns his attention to the matter of Kayla's involvement, questioning her role in aiding the kidnappers. With a grim and determined expression, Haruchika looks down and admits that he has no excuse for his failure. He begins his account for the guildmaster, explaining that Kayla appeared at the cabin the previous afternoon. She had delivered a message, supposedly from him, instructing them to come to the guild around noon today. As Kayla starts to protest, the guild master coldly informs her that he wasn't asking for her input. She erupts in denial, shouting that she never went to any cabin. With a wild expression, she accuses Haruchika of fabricating the story, claiming he must have run off with Lily himself and is now trying to frame her. The guild master remains unbothered, stating that they will soon discover who is lying. As Kayla continues to shout accusations at a stunned Haruchika, the guild master slams his hand on the desk and bellows for silence. His command is punctuated by a flash of light from a spherical device on the desk. The guild master explains that the cabin is equipped with a surveillance magical tool. Though it can only show the previous day's footage, he is confident it will be enough. Kayla stares in horror at the revelation. The device projects an image of Kayla at the cabin, watching Lily leave. The guild master points out the undeniable proof, leaving Kayla speechless. His secretary, Amelia, remarks that while it's obvious Kayla is being controlled, she had planned to arrest her today anyway, so excuses are pointless. Amelia continues, explaining that it was easy to identify the adventurers who attacked Haruchika in the dungeon. They were all under Kayla's supervision, and the more she investigated, the more crimes she uncovered. Standing before the guildmaster, Amelia lists Kayla's offenses, falsifying subjugation records and inflating reward claims. The guildmaster comments with grim admiration that he's impressed she managed to hide it for so long. Before Kayla can process the accusations, Amelia moves with blinding speed, slamming her to the floor. As she pins the receptionist down, coldly asking if she thought she could escape, Haruchika rushes forward, demanding to know Lily's whereabouts. Pinned to the ground, Kayla's fear gives way to a manic grin. She declares that it's too late, revealing that Lily's captors should be reaching the border of the neighboring country, Novark, at any moment. Her words strike Haruchika with devastating force. Kayla twists the knife, explaining that Novark is a country where the slave trade is legal. Even if he gives chase now, she taunts, Lily will have already been sold. As Haruchika reeled from the devastating news, Guild Master Bonzo erupted with decisive commands. He roared that there was only one road to the Novark border and ordered it to be blockaded immediately. His secretary, Amelia, accepted the order without hesitation, declaring she would take full responsibility for the action. He continued, instructing Amelia to request backup from the guilds in the towns near the border. As the guild master frantically organized the response, the captive Kayla burst into maniacal laughter, taunting them that they would never make it in time. With cold fury, Amelia told her to shut up. Elsewhere, a frantic Haruchika desperately searched for another way. His search led him to Jabril. He urgently asked if she could teleport them, and she confirmed it was possible as long as she knew the general location. A spark of hope ignited in Haruchika. He had found them. He declared that he would teleport them there directly. Far away, a horse-drawn, covered wagon, carrying the kidnapped Lily, continued its journey toward the border. Aboard a moving carriage, one of two captors notes that they are approaching the border. On the floor, bound and gagged, lies Lily Fafner, whom he refers to as Miss Death. Her captors sneer down at her. The larger man comments on her defiant expression, informing her that once they hand her over to the slave trader in Novark, they will be parting ways. The younger man giggles in cruel anticipation. The younger man then asks his boss if he can teach this bitch a lesson. The boss sternly refuses, reminding him that she is merchandise and must not be marked. Lily's eyes widen in terror, and in her mind, she desperately calls out for Haruchika to save her. Meanwhile, soaring through the sky, Haruchika announces that he's found them, confirming he's getting a response from Lily. He identifies their carriage below. Jabril, clinging to his back, asks if they should charge in, but Haruchika hesitates. He muses that Lily's affection value has likely dropped, and he needs a plan to raise it all at once. His companion realizes with alarm that he is to be part of a catch. Haruchika confirms it, stating that although he doesn't want to, he must. With a reluctant pout, Jabril agrees, declaring that whatever happens next is not her fault. Below them, Haruchika is thrown from the carriage. Putting the plan into motion, Haruchika forcefully hurls Jabril through the air, aiming directly for the speeding carriage. She lands hard on the carriage roof, shocking the two drivers. As one demands to know where she came from, Haruchika lands beside her. He reports Jabril's assessment. For people inside, two drivers, Lily in the back, and one more at the driver's feet. From within the carriage, a stunned Lily recognizes her rescuer's name. He instantly leaps into action, vaulting into the back of the carriage and striking both captors with a flurry of attacks before they can react. The surprise assault sends the two men reeling in shock and pain. The drivers and Lily can only watch, stunned by the sudden turn of events. With the immediate threat neutralized, he turns to Lily. Tears of relief stream down her face as she whispers his name. A nearby display registers her affection value at 72. Haruchika offers a reassuring smile and says, "Sorry, I'm late." He calmly faced the enraged captor, internally noting that the man's skill level had dropped significantly to 72. Haruchika could discern this just from his opponent's stance, while the other, larger kidnapper looked on, stunned into silence. With this assessment made, he moved in a blur, striking down both men in a single fluid motion. Compared to true warriors like Marion or McAllister, he mused, these two were nothing more than small fries. As the two kidnappers lay unconscious on the carriage floor, Haruchika immediately turned to the bound Lily Fafner. He called out her name and announced his intention to untie her. Before he could reach her, Lily's eyes widened in panic as she screamed a warning. A third man, one of the carriage drivers, was lunging at him from behind. Haruchika whirled around, his face a mask of surprise as a fist flew towards him. The blow connected with brutal force, sending Haruchika flying out of the back of the moving carriage as Lily watched in horror. He landed hard on the road below. From the edge of the carriage, the driver stared down at his fallen form and let out a triumphant, mocking laugh. The driver turned his cruel attention back to Lily. He declared Haruchika dead, sneering that this proved her moniker of Miss Death was true, as every adventurer she partners with dies. He pointed an accusatory finger, telling her that the boy's death was her fault. Lily stared back, aghast at his cruelty. His words struck their mark. Overwhelmed, Lily began to cry, whispering that his accusations were horrible and untrue. The driver leaned in closer, a sadistic grin spreading across his face. He told her to relax, promising that once she was sold into slavery, she would be done with adventurers for good and would no longer be called Miss Death. His taunts were cut short by a voice from the darkness behind him. "Yeah," it said. Startled, the driver turned. The voice, unmistakably Haruchika's, continued, "I won't let them call you Miss Death anymore." He wasted no time. Before the stunned driver could even process his survival, Haruchika closed the distance, his fist connecting with the man's jaw in a brutal, solid strike. The initial blow was just the beginning. With a swift, acrobatic kick, he sent the man tumbling off the back of the moving carriage. Landing lightly on his feet, Haruchika let out a breath of relief. The immediate threat now neutralized as Marion and Lily looked on. His task complete, he turned his attention to the stunned beastwoman. "Lily," he said softly, his expression gentle despite the dirt and scrapes on his face. He reminded her of his vow. "I made you a promise, didn't I? That I would never die." His words shattered her stunned silence. With a choked cry of his name, Lily launched herself at him, tears of relief pouring down her cheeks. She clung to him, sobbing apologies and repeating how glad she was that he was alive. Haruchika held her close, gently patting her back as she let out all her fear and worry. Stunned and blushing, Haruchika freezes as Lily Fafner presses a soft kiss to his cheek. He remains wide-eyed and speechless as she lingers, her own face flushed with affection. She then pulls him into a full embrace, nuzzling her furry ears against the side of his head. Observing from nearby, Jabril cheers, announcing that the second target has been cleared. A status screen appears before her, confirming that Lily's affection has maxed out at a value of 100. She smiles slyly, thinking to herself that even so, there was more to the situation. She muses that her master really works his angel, herself, to the bone, recalling how Haruchika had instructed her to deliberately throw him from the carriage so she could catch him. The memory gives way to the present chaos as the carriage crashes. Haruchika and Lily look on in shock while Jabril spots the driver making a break for it on a smaller cart, shouting that one of them is getting away. As Haruchika starts to move, Lily grabs him tightly, pleading for him not to go. He grits his teeth in frustration, unable to give chase. She holds on, apologizing for being scared and begging him not to do anything dangerous anymore. Haruchika agrees, then internally considers their predicament. He reasons that the guild probably has the escaped driver's information, so their immediate problem is simply getting back from where they are. Jabril then flies over, reporting to her master that adventurers from a neighboring city, sent at the guildmaster's request, are on their way. Hearing this, Haruchika decides their best bet is to wait. While he dealt with the aftermath of the crash, Jabril took charge of the assailants he had knocked out, securing them. She also declared she would keep the horse calm, so it wouldn't run off. His attention then turned to Lily, who seemed unwell. He asked what was wrong, and she hesitated, murmuring his name. He thanked her, prompting her to wonder how he could be so considerate. She continued to hesitate, her face flushed and beaded with sweat. With labored breaths, she admitted that what she had to say was very difficult to bring up. Finally, Lily confessed the source of her distress. She believed her heat cycle had just started. The revelation struck Haruchika with the force of a physical blow, leaving him utterly stunned. As he struggled to process the information, Lily, seemingly unaware of the true nature of her condition, tried to rationalize her symptoms. She noted that her face was hot and her heart was racing, concluding that it must be because of her feelings for him, as this was the first time it had ever happened. Haruchika's shock turned to frantic questioning. Lily, still flushed, explained a critical fact about her people. If they engage in intimacy during a heat cycle, pregnancy is absolutely guaranteed. He stammered, overwhelmed by the implication. With a serious expression, Lily confirmed his fears, stating it was a 100% hit rate. Now sitting beside him, Lily posed a question, framing it as purely hypothetical. She asked what his preference would be for the male-to-female ratio if they were to have a baby. Haruchika could only stare in confusion, wondering why a ratio was even part of the equation. She calmly provided the answer to his unspoken question. About 6 are born at once. The thought of an instant large family sent a fresh wave of panic through Haruchika. He reeled, picturing a big family speedrun. As if to complete his horror, Lily added one final detail. They are born in about 60 days. He struggles against Lily's surprising strength as she presses against him, her face flushed and breath hot. She murmurs his name, her instincts overriding her usual demeanor. He tries to push her away, crying out her name in alarm, realizing he can't hold her back. Her advance sends him stumbling backward onto the ground. Lily immediately pounces, pinning him down. He tries to plead with her to calm down, but his words are muffled. A wave of panic washes over him as he understands the gravity of the situation, though a part of his mind registers how soft she feels. Pinned beneath her, he can only watch as she gives in completely to her instincts, nuzzling his neck. She breathes in deeply, sighing that she can smell her male's scent. He desperately fights to maintain his own composure, thinking that it's too early to lose control and that they must get home first. Suddenly, a sharp tug on his ear breaks through the haze. Jabril has appeared, yanking on his ear with a stern look. She shouts at him, demanding he do something instead of just standing there watching. Flustered, Haruchika turns to face her, his expression a mixture of panic and irritation. Moments later, the immediate danger has passed. Haruchika holds an unconscious Lily, explaining to a concerned Jabril that he put her to sleep for now. Lily's face is slack, her body limp in his arms. He looks down at her, remarking on how she was like a completely different person. He reflects with exhaustion that he never imagined maxing out her affection meter would lead to such a chaotic result. Letting out a deep sigh of relief, his body goes limp. He looks over at Jabril and asks if, after all that, this counts as clearing the second target. Jabril enthusiastically confirms that it does. With Haruchika and the still unconscious Lily resting in the back of a cart, she announces that once they deliver Lily to the guild, they will proceed to the next target. As Haruchika weakly expresses his hope that the next one will be easier, Jabril reveals their new objective. The third target is a sister named Anna Eastmartin, who serves at the cathedral in Amalia Holy Land. A silhouette of a woman in a revealing nun's habit looms, hinting at the nature of their next challenge. She frantically tried to rouse her master, shaking him as he lay completely wiped out. Nearby, the goddess Clementine noted that his next target was a sister in service to the divine. The thought barely registered with Haruchika, who mumbled that it sounded stuffy and not like a romance type at all before he lost consciousness. Jibril cried out for him to wake up, a desperate plea on her lips. His exhaustion finally claimed him. He fell into a deep sleep, with Lily resting peacefully beside him, her arm draped over his chest and her fluffy tail twitching gently in her slumber. With the help of adventurers dispatched by Guild Master Bonzo, they made it back to the city of Kurdoburg by noon the next day. Upon their arrival at the guild, Bonzo commended Haruchika for a job well done. Lily, now recovered from her primal state, was overcome with remorse. She apologized so profusely, tears streaming down her face as she bowed, that her display of guilt became its own ordeal. Standing before the guild master's desk, Haruchika began to offer his thanks for the assistance, but Bonzo told him not to flatter himself. Secretary Amelia clarified that the guild master's actions were entirely for Lily's sake. Bonzo gruffly added that his gratitude was not meant for Haruchika. His focus was on the captured culprits. He declared that everyone, including the receptionist Kayla and the one who had previously escaped, had been secured. They would all be sent to the local lord for sentencing, where, he noted with grim satisfaction, the death penalty was all but certain. With that matter settled, he turned back to Haruchika, promoting him to iron rank. Though there was no bounty, Bonzo explained this was his compensation. Amelia scolded Haruchika for his casual attitude, but Bonzo merely smirked, revealing he had a job to offer the new iron rank adventurer. As he leaned in, Jibril suddenly appeared, reminding her master about his next target. Utterly exhausted, Haruchika tried to postpone the conversation until the next day, but Bonzo urged him not to be so on guard. The guild master then grabbed Haruchika in a firm headlock, boisterously announcing that this was no ordinary job. It was an escort mission for the Saintess. The title stunned Haruchika into silence, while Jibril noted the suspiciously perfect timing of the offer. He is briefed on the details of his new assignment. The target is a sister, newly blessed by the goddess, who is traveling in an ornate carriage from the Holy Land to the cathedral in the royal capital. The guild master explains that she will be passing through town the following day. Haruchika's job is to join her entourage and provide escort all the way to the capital. Looking stressed, he questions the assignment, pointing out that she must already have escorts. The guild master leans in, his expression serious, and states that it is a matter of trust. He continues, revealing a grim truth. The church is rotten on the inside. A brief vision shows the Saintess surrounded by other clergy, implying the threat comes from within her own ranks. As Haruchika mulls this over, Jibril appears beside him, warning that he'll be scolded for his thoughts. He retorts that it's understandable, given the goddess they worship. The guild master elaborates that not everyone welcomes the new Saintess, and an assassin could be hiding anywhere. He explains that an old friend, one of the priests traveling with her, specifically requested someone trustworthy and skilled. Haruchika internally questions if he truly fits that description. Suddenly realizing the guild master's ulterior motive, Haruchika accuses him of using the mission to keep a potential culprit at a distance. He complains that he's tired and, on top of that, can't afford for Lily to quit and get married. The guild master ignores his outburst and simply orders him to take the job. With the matter settled, the guild master formally presents the mission: escort the Saintess, Anais Martin, to the cathedral in the royal capital, framing it as an easy job. Later, Haruchika observes the Saintess's carriage from a hidden vantage point. From inside, a voice announces that they should arrive in Kurdoburg by the next day, addressing the Saintess. He gets his first clear look at Anais Martin. She offers a gentle smile, thanking someone for their hard work, and he is immediately captivated, thinking she is an angel. But then, her expression shifts to one of utter boredom as she mutters to herself, "What a drag." Within the Amalia Grand Cathedral resides the Saintess, Anais Martin. She sits with an air of weary disdain, her long, pale hair cascading over a form-fitting habit. With one leg crossed over the other, revealing thigh-high stockings beneath her clerical robes, she shifts uncomfortably and mutters a complaint, "My butt hurts." Inside the guild master's office, Haruchika Isezaki sits across from guild master Bonzo, who asks if he's heard the details of the request. A priest stands beside Bonzo, observing the meeting. Before he can answer, Jibril excitedly points out that his next target is the subject of the mission. Haruchika calmly confirms this, acknowledging that it is an escort mission for the Saintess. He then formally introduces himself to the priest as Haruchika Isezaki, an iron rank adventurer. The priest listens with a thoughtful expression. The priest introduces himself as Bengler of the Amalia Church and tells Haruchika to relax. Guild Master Bonzo adds with a grin that while Bengler may seem like a stick in the mud now, they used to get into all sorts of trouble together in their youth. Bengler dismisses the comment, reminding Bonzo of his position, but the guild master simply laughs and gestures for him to sit. With the pleasantries over, Bonzo's expression turns serious as he prepares to continue the briefing. The focus of their discussion is revealed: Sister Anais of the Holy Land Church. It is explained that last month, the previous Saintess, Lady Karina, was called to heaven in the royal capital. Subsequently, the goddess's blessing descended upon Anais, making her the new saintess. Back in the office, Bonzo instructs Bangler to explain the intricacies of the church's politics to Haruchika, since he is from another country. Haruchika quietly processes the new information, murmuring that the goddess blessed her. Bangler acknowledges Haruchika's foreign origins and agrees to explain the situation, his expression serious as he prepares to divulge the sensitive details. The priest's explanation reveals a deep-seated power struggle between the Holy City Church and the Royal Capital Church. Furthermore, with the birth of a new saintess, a new archbishop must also be chosen, and the saintess herself is the one who makes the selection. Bangler praises Haruchika's perceptiveness as the young man deduces the core of the conflict. If the new archbishop is chosen from the Holy City, the royal capital faction will be displeased. Haruchika asks if they would truly resort to assassination. Bangler confirms it, but adds a critical detail. There's only one saintess per generation, and if Anais were to die, the goddess would simply bless a new one. He reels from the implication, his mind struggling to process the idea of the goddess simply choosing a new saintess as if replacing a pawn. He blurts out, questioning what this saintess re-rolling is and whether the goddess is even sane, while Jabril looks on from his shoulder and Clementine sleeps soundly in the background. In response to his outburst, Priest Bangler explains that this is precisely the problem. There's a chance the next saintess could be chosen from the royal capital's faction. He then poses a rhetorical question to Haruchika. If he were on their side, what would he do? Bangler smirks, dismissing the notion that Haruchika is the type to worship the goddess anyway. The priest sighs, rubbing his temples as he notes that with assassins potentially hiding anywhere, the situation is dire. Haruchika, however, offers a chillingly calm smile. He agrees, stating that if the goddess weren't a woman, he would punch her in the face for her carelessness. The comment shocks Jabril and draws the attention of Guild Master Bonzo and his secretary, Amelia. Hearing this, Priest Bangler considers Haruchika's words. He concedes that for this particular job, having someone so irreverent might actually be more reassuring. He elaborates, explaining that what he values in Haruchika isn't just strength, but the courage and wit he demonstrated when he saved Lily. Despite the praise, Haruchika feels the pressure, admitting the situation feels over his head and questioning if he's the right choice. On his shoulder, Jabril senses the goddess's anger at his earlier blasphemy. Trying to grasp the logistics, he asks if he should ride in the saintess's carriage. Priest Bangler immediately shuts down the idea, stating the carriage is reserved exclusively for her and that Haruchika is expected to travel by horse. Haruchika then sheepishly admits he can't ride, realizing he'll need another way to stay close. At this confession, Guild Master Bonzo sighs, calling Haruchika a hopeless brat. He turns to his secretary and orders Amelia to accompany him. Both Amelia and Haruchika are stunned. Bonzo waves off her protests, saying Lily can take over her duties, but Amelia insists her place is as his secretary. Her protests are futile. Amelia is left seething, muttering to herself in frustration at the thought of Lily taking her place. The tension between the newly assigned partners is immediate. While Jabril cheerfully asks when they leave, Haruchika and Amelia are locked in a mutual glare. He tells her not to look at him that way, insisting this wasn't his idea either. Priest Bangler ignores their bickering and concludes the meeting. He informs them that the saintess is currently at a ceremony in the Kurtoberg church and that their departure is scheduled for early the next morning. In the distance, the silhouette of the saintess stands within the church. The priest, Bangler, explains to Haruchika that they encountered some trouble when setting out, which has delayed their schedule. Haruchika observes that only staying for one day seems quite rushed. He asks if the priest is all right, but Bangler simply offers a strained smile, indicating he does not wish to elaborate on the matter. The priest changes the subject, assuring him there should be no issue keeping others away from the saintess. He explains that the only people allowed close to her are himself and her attendant, Sister Claudia. With this information, Haruchika inquires about the overall size of their group. Bangler specifies that the party consists of 30 people, including 7 holy knights dispatched from the Royal Capital Church. The detail immediately raises a red flag for Haruchika, who realizes those 7 knights could also represent a potential threat. Later, Haruchika grits his teeth in frustration, muttering to himself that the goddess Clementine never brings him anything good. Jabril stands beside him, listening. She looks up towards the sky with a small laugh, thinking of that goddess. The group stands in the street, a heavy mood settling over them as Haruchika, Jabril, Marion, and Amelia all sigh in unison. Amelia, holding the reins of a horse, seethes internally, lamenting that she must leave the guild master's side because of Haruchika. Her frustration erupts as she yells at Haruchika, blaming him by declaring that none of this would have happened if he could simply ride a horse. He retorts that it's not his fault. She concedes that it is true he is the most suitable choice for this mission among everyone in the guild, which surprises him. However, she quickly shouts for him not to misunderstand, clarifying that she is praising the master's judgment, not him. Deciding he needs to be cautious, Haruchika resolves to check her status. He activates his ability, revealing Amelia's status, age 27, with skills in backstab and lockpicking. To his shock, Her current affection value is 21. He internally questions why it's so high and briefly wonders if she's at tsundere before deciding it's better not to comment. Amelia, meanwhile, glares at him, annoyed by his silent staring. He and Amelia stand in the city street as Priest Bangler approaches, addressing them both by name to begin the day's proceedings. The priest notes their early arrival and offers to introduce them to the saintess immediately. Startled but eager, Haruchika quickly accepts the offer. Before they can proceed, Lily Fafner rushes onto the scene, gasping for breath. She calls out Haruchika's name, explaining that she came as fast as she could after hearing he was leaving today. She takes his hands, earnestly asking him to be careful and promising she'll wait for his return. After Haruchika thanks her, Marion steps forward and asks if he would accompany her to the north when he comes back. Lily's face flushes with emotion, her eyes welling with tears as she quietly admits that she was hoping he could meet her parents. The vulnerable confession makes Haruchika stammer an apology, but the moment is shattered by Amelia. She curtly demands to know how long the two of them intend to keep flirting. Following the interruption, Haruchika bids Lily farewell for now. As she agrees, Priest Bangler announces that it is time to guide them to the saintess. Lily, however, clenches her fists with renewed determination, declaring that she will see him off properly. As she does, the priest explains to the assembled group that the saintess travels in her own private carriage. He continues his briefing, noting that while the carriage is sturdily built and reinforced with holy magic, the saintess will be most vulnerable when she leaves it at places like lodging sites. Amelia confirms that she understands. The priest's warning settles as the three of them arrive before the ornate carriage, which is flanked by two heavily armored guards standing at attention. He watched as the carriage door clicked open. Priest Bangler stepped forward and addressed the occupant within, announcing that he had brought Haruchika, ISEKAI'D, and Amelia Glock to serve as the saintess's escorts. Inside, a woman with long, light hair sat demurely in a nun's habit. From the doorway, Haruchika and Amelia watched as she apologized for troubling them on the long journey to the royal capital. He focused his unique sight on her, and a panel of information materialized before his eyes. It identified her as Anais Martin, age 20, but her job was listed as sister/false saintess. Her skills were healing and intimidation, and her current affection value was a flat 0. The term false saintess struck him with surprise. As his mind processed this revelation, Jabril, hovering nearby, commented that she recalled the woman blessed by the goddess was named Ricotta Liebfrau. Haruchika dismissed the thought for the moment, his expression hardening with resolve. He decided that whether she was a true saintess or a false one, she was still his target to protect. With that, he resolved to put on the act of a cool, devoted knight. Putting his plan into action, he knelt before Anais. He formally greeted her, pledging to risk his very life for the protection of her noble self. Anais simply looked down at him, her expression unreadable. His declaration, however, had the opposite of its intended effect. The affection value displayed in his vision plummeted from 0 to -20. He stared in utter shock, shouting in his mind, completely baffled as to why his vow had caused such a drastic drop. A sudden shift occurs as the saintess, Anais Martin, makes her appearance. Simultaneously, a system notification reveals that Haruchika's affection value with her has plummeted to -20. He stares in shock, wondering aloud why it dropped, while Marion Bonnet gasps and then snaps at him for spacing out. He flinches, attempting to defend himself. He quickly denies any ill intent, claiming he was simply captivated by the saintess's beauty. His excuse fails to impress Marion. With a severe expression, she turns to Priest Bangler and declares that if a need arises, she will personally dispose of the womanizer. Haruchika, caught between them, questions why he, the escort, is the one being threatened. From within the carriage, the saintess gives Haruchika a cold, sidelong glance, internally branding him a scumbag. Fed up, Marion shouts at him to be quiet, announcing that they are leaving immediately. As they prepare to depart, Haruchika mutters to himself, bewildered. He cannot comprehend how what he considered a perfectly harmless internal thought could have caused the saintess's affection value to drop by 20 points all at once. He continues to ponder the cause when Jabril appears beside him. She offers a potential explanation, noting that the saintess is supposed to become the mother of one of the hero's party members. She then speculates that perhaps this false saintess has some kind of trauma involving men. Upon hearing Jabril's theory, Haruchika's demeanor changes. A slight, confident smile forms on his face as he remarks that this is simply trial and error, as usual. His muttering is overheard. Marion, busy with a horse, whirls around and demands to know what he's talking about, shouting that they're setting out. Haruchika quickly offers a sheepish apology. She leans down from her mount, her expression deadly serious. She warns Haruchika that she will not allow him to cheat on her, a clear reference to Lily. Her threat escalates dramatically. Drawing a knife, her eyes burn with intensity as she vows that if he does anything to make Lily cry, she will be the one to finish him off. She lets out a sharp huff, turning away from Haruchika, who looks on with clear irritation. Jabril floats nearby, observing the tense standoff. Ignoring her, Haruchika addresses Jibril directly. He asks when Lily and the others' memories will be erased. Jibril acknowledges the question, ready to answer. She explains that their memories will be erased as soon as he leaves Kurtoberg. However, she adds a crucial detail. Amelia's memories must wait until after the Saintess, Anais, has been safely delivered to the royal capital to avoid creating inconsistencies. Before he can process this, Marion's attention is caught by something outside. She points, announcing that it's Haruchika and the others. His gaze follows hers to the street, where he sees a small group has gathered to see them off. Lily, Guild Master Bonzo, the priest Bangler, another man, and a furious-looking Amelia, who questions why Lily is with that bastard. Despite the surrounding tension, Lily waves a bright, cheerful goodbye, telling them to take care. Haruchika simply replies, yeah, while Marion looks on with a stern expression. He turns away from the farewell, his face set with resolve. That's fine, he murmurs, accepting the conditions Jibril laid out. With the decision made, a convoy of 3 ornate carriages begins to roll forward, embarking on the journey from Kurtoberg. Now on horseback alongside the carriages, Haruchika complains that the ride has made his rear end so sore he's at his limit. Marion curtly informs him they'll be arriving at tonight's campsite soon, prompting a relieved thank God from him. She whirls on him, her patience exhausted. She shouts that she couldn't care less about his, but their priority is to secure the area so the Saintess can enter the inn safely. As she and her companions stand guard, a grand carriage approaches, drawing the attention of the crowd. People begin to murmur, recognizing it as the Saintess's transport. Haruchika, however, seems unconcerned, casually telling Marion not to get so worked up and that he understands the situation. The crowd's murmurs turn to cheers as the Saintess, Anais Martin, offers a gentle smile from her window. Cries of adoration and even marriage proposals fill the air. Marion sternly reminds Haruchika not to let his guard down. He observes the scene, remarking to Marion that the Saintess is surprisingly popular, admitting he had previously thought her an idiot. She glares at him, exasperated. She calls him a fool, stating that of course the Saintess is popular. Her tone makes it clear she finds his surprise utterly baffling. He turns away, muttering that even so, it's not a given. Jibril suddenly appears beside him, chiding him. She argues that even if the blessing for marriage came from a useless goddess, a woman wouldn't agree to marry without genuine romantic feelings. He looks down towards the church, thinking it's impossible and that there's nothing about the goddess worth respecting. Jibril senses his disdain and, while saying she understands how he feels, reminds him that the goddess is still a deity and deserves at least a baseline of respect. While they linger, Marion strides purposefully towards the carriage. She glances back, shouting for them to stop dawdling and hurry up, before turning to a guard and instructing him to take care of the horses. She reaches the carriage door just as Haruchika catches up. She thinks to herself that this is the only chance she'll have to approach Anais today and resolves to make her move. Before she can act, however, Haruchika steps in front of her. He operates on the principle that no woman alive dislikes being treated like a princess. With a confident look, he reaches for the door, announcing his intent to open it for the Saintess. He kneels down, presenting his open hand in a gesture of pure chivalry. Your hand, please, Saintess, he requests. But Anais, her expression placid, coolly replies, that will not be necessary. Jibril gasps, her eyes wide with shock. The Saintess completely ignores Haruchika's offered hand, walking past him as he remains frozen in his kneeling, rejected posture. He remains kneeling on the ground, utterly ignored. A strange power registers the Saintess's current state as intimidation, her affection value having plummeted to -40. As her attendant, Amelia, guides her away, the Saintess offers a polite but cold yes and thank you, her gaze never once falling upon the boy she left in the dust. Jibril, perched atop his head, whispers that his public display was embarrassing. With gritted teeth, Haruchika tells her to shut up and not to pile on. From a nearby doorway, Marion looks back at him with disdain. She calls him useless and tells him he can go rest at the inn now. Taking her advice, he heads inside. Flanked by 2 armored guards, Haruchika enters the inn, Jibril asking if this is where they're staying. He confirms with a weary sigh. The guards stand impassively, their expressions hidden behind the cold steel of their helmets. Once inside his room, Haruchika collapses face first onto the bed, letting out a long, frustrated sigh as Jibril watches from the footboard. His dejection quickly boils over into fury. He slams his fist in the mattress, roaring into the empty room. What the hell is with that false Saintess? Jibril agrees, noting that, even from her perspective, she saw nothing that would warrant such a severe drop in the affection value. Haruchika explains that he only tried to be a little more polite than usual. He concludes that with so few chances to even make contact, he has no way of figuring out what he did wrong. He realizes his opportunities are even more limited than he thought. A diagram of their lodgings shows that during their stay, Amelia, being a woman, will handle all of the Saintess's close-quarters escort duties, effectively isolating Anais in her own room. Sighing in defeat, Haruchika understands that the only real chances he has to approach her are the brief moments when she gets in and out of her carriage. He lies in bed, Jibril floating beside him, and resolves to keep making small attempts to interact with the Saintess, hoping to gauge her reactions. Jabril, however, is simply annoyed by his restless movements. Meanwhile, in her private quarters, the Saintess removes her stockings with a sigh of relief. After a long day, she thanks her attendant, Sister Claudia, and dismisses her for the night. The moment the door closes, she collapses onto her bed, her composure shattering. She seethes with frustration, unable to tolerate the situation any longer and recalling Haruchika's earlier attempt to take her hand with disgust, calling him a filthy man. Her anger gives way to despair. She wonders how she ended up in this mess, fearing that everyone's attitude towards her will change the second they discover she is a fake. 1 week later, the Saintess's procession travels through the winding roads of the Kyou Gorge. Despite the passage of time, Haruchika, riding on horseback with Marion, feels he has made no progress at all. He grits his teeth in frustration, lamenting the entire week has passed without a single millimeter of advancement. Jabril bluntly summarizes his failures, recalling how his attempts, like offering flowers, only resulted in further rejection and a plummeting affection value. She sighs, concluding that rather than making progress, he has only succeeded in making the Saintess clearly hate him. He voices a desperate hope to Jabril, wondering aloud if the affection value might suddenly flip from negative to positive if it keeps dropping, just as it did with Marion. But he immediately dismisses the idea himself. He explains that the situation with Marion only worked because he understood why her affection was dropping and knew how to reverse it. This time, he is completely in the dark. His dejection is palpable. Marion, who had been quiet, turns to him and asks if he's all right. Jabril echoes the sentiment, asking if he's actually feeling depressed. With a heavy heart, Haruchika admits that he is. He rides on horseback through the narrow pass, with Marion beside him and Jabril in the carriage just behind. Jabril announces their entry into Kyou Gorge. Marion warns that an attack here would be trouble, urging him to remain vigilant. Haruchika observes the steep cliffs, noting to himself that this is the country's most difficult route, where a single fall means certain death. She then explains the logic of their formation. The road is narrow with no blind spots, which she believes makes it relatively safe. She details the caravan's order. The royal capital Holy Knights lead the vanguard, followed by the carriages of Priest Bengler, the Saintess, their own group, and the attendant sister, with a rear guard bringing up the end. Her expression hardens as she considers a grim possibility, stating that the route is only safe unless they face attackers who disregard their own lives. As she speaks, small pebbles begin to clatter down the cliff face. Haruchika, however, remains confident, thinking that no one would be foolish enough to attack in such a precarious location. His thought is violently cut short by a tremendous roar as the cliffside above begins to collapse. A landslide tears the path apart, and Haruchika can only shout in disbelief as the ground beneath the Saintess's carriage gives way. The road disintegrates completely. The Saintess's carriage, along with the horses pulling it, is sent plunging into the vast emptiness of the gorge. From their own carriage, Jabril watches in wide-eyed horror. Panic erupts. Sister Claudia lets out a piercing scream, while Marion cries out the Saintess's name. Inside the tumbling carriage, Anouise is thrown about, her face a mask of pure shock as the world turns upside down. Cursing the situation, Haruchika makes a split-second decision. Without hesitation, he kicks free from his stirrups and launches himself from his horse, diving headfirst into the abyss after the falling carriage. Marion and Jabril scream his name in terror as he disappears over